Hey y'all, welcome on this Friday night for Black Women Healing, a fireside chat with the lovely Alecia Renece, the artist. I'm so glad to have you
Oh, thank
tonight,
you.
just to talk about healing, different life topics, and stuff like that. Your work has been pivotal in my own healing journey, so it's such a blessing to be able to talk to you tonight. So,
Oh,
yeah.
thank you for having me.
Um, absolutely. Yeah, so I guess I'll just read your bio and then I'll pass it to you. You want to say
Sure.
anything? But yes, Alicia Renese, the artist, love child of God, soulful singer, songwriter, storyteller, multi passionate artist, unapologetic, loving, feeling, free Black woman. She's dedicated to creating art and a life that moves, art that encourages, art that resonates, art that frees, art that speaks truth, and art that connects. She believes in using her newfound freedom to free others. So, with that, I'll pass it to her to, introduce herself.
Oh, thank you. Well,
Yeah.
thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah. All the things I like to start with saying like I'm a human being first. I am loved. That's why I like ground myself. I'm loved by God. Like first, like I'm a creation. And yeah. So all the stuff that you listed, I am a multi passionate artist. I'm also a serial hobbyist. I like to do stuff for fun. I like connecting with other people. I love hanging out with my friends. I like being out in nature. I love taking my life slowly and like smelling the roses, so to
I
speak.
love
So yeah,
that.
yeah,
Taking your
yeah.
life slowly.
Oh yes.
Yes, that is inspiring.
Thanks.
Okay, so yes. So, moving to our first question. What is the why behind your channel? Your channel
Mm,
has inspired so many. Just you sharing your authentic journey, I think, gives us space to be able to share ours. I know that was the case for me. So, what was the why behind your channel when you first created, and who do you serve on your channel?
well, first of all, thank you. um, it's
Yes.
always it's always encouraging and humbling. I will say when I hear people compliment me about my channel and what I share
Mm,
and how it inspires them, because I take great care like with what I share, what I say, and again, it's always humbling to know that even from sharing my broken pieces, that other people are absolutely giving themselves permission to heal, like in real
right.
time.
Yeah.
But the reason why I started my YouTube channel, honestly, was because in high school, in college, I was
Mm-hmm.
studying in deaf studies, so like ASL. So
Yeah.
in order to record videos, to do homework, I would have to record myself and send it to my teachers. So it wasn't
Mm.
until maybe like a couple of years afterwards, I'm like, oh, let me actually start sharing my thoughts. So let me start actually sharing my music.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how it started. Like, I want to share my music and my thoughts. And then later on, I was like, I want to share my journey. Like, I want to share my thoughts about healing
Mm.
in general, but I didn't really have the word for it back then. It was more
Yeah.
like a vlog, right? Like a blog, but just me speaking. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's how I got started. Where it is now, I'm I'm happy because I spent a lot of time trying to figure out like what my niche is. What is your niche? What is your thing? And I
Yeah.
think trying to
Mm-hmm.
find that was very stressful for me because I was like, I do a lot of stuff. And and
Mm-hmm.
and it wasn't until later that I was like, what if I just bring all parts of myself to my channel? My music, sharing my thoughts, my writing even.
Mm-hmm.
Um and sharing the thoughts that I have about the world. And when I started doing that, it was just, at first my mom, my husband, a few friends
Yeah.
coming and, cheering me on while I make music. And then later on, other people started watching. And I'm like, oh, wow. Like, people actually get what I'm saying. People actually resonate with what I'm saying. And right now, I censor Black women on my channel. Black
Mm-hmm.
women. And
Yeah.
specifically, I would say creative Black women, but I think all Black women are creative. That's another
Mm-hmm.
conversation.
Me
Um,
too.
but
Yeah.
but yes, yes. So creative Black women are my center. I do have men who follow and support, and I appreciate them because they allow Black women to be centered. And I would consider them like, you know, supporters and allies. But be
Mm-hmm.
clear, I'm for Black women specifically. So yes, yes.
Yes, absolutely. And I love what you said about like not niching or not like, it coming to that pressure, right? Of
Yeah.
having to niche when you have so many different interests.
Yeah.
And I think that's inspiring to see like the many different avenues that you create and you're just sharing them all on your platform. Like you don't often see that on YouTube. So
I
it's
appreciate that.
amazing. It's
Thank you.
amazing. Yes. And thank y'all for commenting
Yes.
and joining. Good evening, everyone. So yeah, in the title, right? Healing.
Mhm.
Healing is this term that we often see like thrown around it feels really big, and sometimes we don't really know what it means.
Yeah.
So, in your view, what does healing mean to you? What does it look like?
Healing. Oh, healing is for me, like in my mind, it's lifelong, right? It's never,
Yeah.
to me, it's not like, oh, it's just an 8 week process and we're going to get over, you know, get over this thing. Healing is
Yes.
lifelong. And I feel like we're always healing something, right? Like we're
Mm-hmm.
always, even when we are, even when we think that we are healed from something, I think that
Mm-hmm.
there is a lot of pressure on us to be there, right? Like to be healed, to be what
Yes.
other people think of as healed. But I
Mm-hmm.
think that healing for me has, the definition has changed for a long time, because at first I was really frustrated with myself. Why am I not healed? Why am I so hurt by this thing?
Mm.
Like, what's going on? Putting
Right.
all this pressure on myself to be healed. And it wasn't until I broke down. It wasn't
Mm.
until like
Mm-hmm.
I sobbed and I was like snotting on the floor and, you know,
Yeah.
multiple days and weeks and months. Like it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't until then that oh, this is healing. Like the healing is not in the cute, um,
Mm.
you
Mm-hmm.
know, and the cute things that look or feel good. Sometimes it is what is nasty and what is unsightly, what we feel shame around. And healing is sometimes demolishing what it is and starting over again. And so I think for myself, I've done a lot of demolishing. I'm still demolishing. I think that sometimes when I feel like I've got it, I'm like, no, let's erase and start over. So giving myself grace to
Yeah.
like to begin again.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, healing looks different, I guess, in different
Mm-hmm.
phases. Sometimes it is crying, and sometimes it is enjoying a nourishing meal with my friends and doing nothing. Sometimes it's making
Right.
art out of my pain, which I have done.
Mm-hmm.
I've made whole albums about heartbreak and wrote whole books about, you know, the men that have hurt me in my life specifically. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah. So that's healing. I don't even know if that answers your question,
Oh,
but
no, it definitely answers my
okay.
question. Yeah. Because I was thinking about like my own healing journey, especially coming from like a toxic job. A lot of that was not pretty, right? A lot of that, like you said, was on the floor,
Yeah.
in tears,
Yes.
crying.
Yes.
But we're like, it's healing is painted as this picture is like pretty, running through a field, all these things. Like, no, it's actually really messy and it's really
Yes.
hard. And it
Yes.
doesn't feel good all the time while you're in it. You know,
And
it's
some,
only until you kind of
yeah,
get to the next phase that you look back and like, wow, I made it through that.
that part. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do think like when you're talking about like what does it look like? Sometimes we don't even know that we're healing, right? Like sometimes in the thick
Oh,
of it, it doesn't even look like it.
yes.
And I
Mm-hmm.
like what you said. Like it's not until you get to the other side, like oh wow, like
Yep.
I'm
Mm-hmm.
healing. So yeah. So that's, I
Mm-hmm.
agree with you. I agree with you 100%.
That is true. That
Yes.
is very true. Yes. Because when you're in it, like you said, it doesn't feel like it
No,
sometimes.
not at
It's
all.
like you don't even see the progress because it feels like the same thing, the same feelings that you're having every day.
Yes.
Um, but it's like those small things over time that you do to prioritize yourself, your well being, that eventually lead you to that place where you can look back and be like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
I survived a lot. Look at me.
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely. There's so many things that we discount that we don't really like. It takes
Mm-hmm.
a lot like to move through things, right? And to be patient with ourselves and to feel those
Yes.
things fully. And I think like to heal, we have to feel fully. Like we have to be present fully. And I think that sometimes when we are focusing on like what it looks like or what people are saying healing should look like, we are unable to really see ourselves, because it's not like the journey doesn't look the same for everybody. Like healing looks very
That's
different for
true.
very different people. So if you're not in
Yep.
tune with yourself, you don't really know if you're catering to what you actually need, or if you're just trying to like, oh, let me play the part and do the things that they say that I should do, and you know all
Mm-hmm.
these different, quick tips. But yeah, yeah, yeah,
That's true.
yeah,
Yep. And that's such a good point when you're not in tune with yourself because a lot of us aren't. I know that I
yes,
wasn't, especially in like a toxic job because you have to like suppress so many of the natural feelings that come up that you're like a shell of yourself sometimes, or it feels like that. So
yeah,
you're very
yeah.
disconnected from yourself. So getting back to that place of what am I feeling
Mm-hmm.
like is very powerful. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yes.
Thank y'all for commenting. Hey Mara. Hey Lavendula.
Yay.
Hey, Dr. Kamani.
Yes.
Hey, Deshawn. Yes, yes, yes. Thank y'all for being here. So, as a multi passionate artist, where does your creative inspiration come from? I'm sure it's many different places.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
I'll just start with that question
Yes.
first.
Sure. Thanks for asking.
Mm-hmm.
As a multi, okay, so my inspirations come from, I always say, my mother. I say my aunt,
Mm.
I say my grandmother, my other
Yeah.
aunt,
Hmm.
musically, right? Before I could walk or like before I could write or, you know, take pictures, music was in our family. Like music is like in our DNA. So
Hmm.
my grandmother sang, my aunts, like all her daughters sang, and they all sang together in like this group, like, and they would travel around. So my
Oh
mom's from
wow.
like, yeah, my mom's from like the Philadelphia area. So they would travel around
Yeah.
and sing with their group, with the Crawls Ensemble. And I
Wow.
would be there and listen to them singing and listen to them in church singing. Um,
Yeah.
and one thing in particular, so my mother's a soprano, my aunt is an alto, my grandmother's a tenor, right? And
Hmm.
so I would hear them musically play with each other, like with their voices,
Mm.
like singing and harmonizing. And my grandmother would take like in the old hymns, like they would sometimes have a line. So for example, there's a song called "Yes, God Is Real," right? That's my mom. So
Mm.
that's my mom here. So hey, mom.
Oh
Hello.
hey.
So they have a like a song called "Yes, God Is Real,"
Hmm.
and I love when they sing that song. And the main line is like, "Yes, God is real," and underneath it's like, "Yes, God is real. He's real in my soul." So my grandmother would be carrying the bottom of the song. And I think
Wow.
that really inspired me, like, yo, there's so much play in music. Like, there's so many things you can do with music. And I
Yeah.
love music. So music was
Hmm.
like always on. We're always listening to it. So musical inspiration definitely my family. The music that they played.
Hmm.
I'm a geek when it comes to music, so I could keep talking. But the
Please,
music,
please.
yes, yes.
I
There's
love to hear it.
something there's
Hmm.
something even healing about music in general, like what it can do to your mood, what it does like for your thoughts.
Yes.
People putting words to your emotions, chords to your emotions, like things that we can't even explain, like how certain
Hmm.
chords make us feel. And it's like, oh yes, like that, whatever that is, yes. Like I think there's so
Yeah.
much like spirit in music. And so I've always been taken and fascinated with music. So from a young kid, I was like, I want to be a singer. Like I want to sing.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah. So
Yay.
um, with writing, I don't know. Like so, I'm just
Please,
whatever. Just cut
please.
me off if you need to.
I'm
Okay.
sitting here just yes.
So with writing, um,
Hmm.
so my mother taught me how to write and read, and
Hmm.
I journaled a lot because for 7 years I was basically an only child. My younger brother is 7 years younger than me, and my older brother is
Mm.
7 years older than I am. So I spent a lot of time,
Gotcha.
you know, kind of by myself, and so I journaled a lot. I wrote my thoughts. I wrote my feelings. I made up characters because I wanted siblings, and I was like, "This is my sister," and I'm creating these characters and
Oh,
these
yeah. I
names.
love that.
Yes, and personalities. And as soon as I could learn to write, I was writing. I don't know if
Mm.
you remember, like in elementary school, they had write a book contests or write a book things.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Okay,
Hmm.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. So like once I figured out, oh, I can write books. Like you can bind them yourself and do them. That's all I
Hmm.
did. Like I just wrote. I wrote everything. I wrote my thoughts, my ideas, wrote my prayers,
Hmm.
poetry, like just everything. I just wrote because I needed to get my thoughts out and my feelings through.
Hmm. Hmm.
As a little weirdo in elementary school, like, you don't really have a lot of friends. So you got your notebook,
Yes.
So
That's how I
yeah.
was too. Yep.
Yes.
Hmm.
Yes.
It's like writing. I had my journal and I had my
Hmm.
books, and that was like my
Yes.
escape.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, that is
Yes.
powerful.
Yes.
Thank you for
Yes. So
sharing
yeah.
that.
Of course. Thank you. Thanks for asking.
Absolutely. So yes, with Black Girl Creative,
Hmm.
um, you help other Black women kind of tap into their creativity to rediscover themselves. So how can Black women tap into their creativity? Because sometimes we don't, like you said, we don't even feel like we're creative. We
Yeah.
feel like we kind of turn that valve off
Yeah.
and we can't turn it back on. So what advice would you have for Black women looking
Ooh.
to rediscover their creativity?
Yes. The first thing I would say is that you are creative. Every day you're creating. Every day. Every day you're using your imagination. Every day.
Hmm.
And our imagination can be used for good or bad, right? Like I'm imagining the worst case scenario for this thing. I'm imagining that I'm not good enough for this thing. I'm imagining, these different scenarios in our heads. And whether you're cooking a meal, whether you're driving to work or figuring out a new, route, whether you are figuring out how to get across an idea across to a child or a coworker, all of that is creativity. All of it is. But I think that the problem comes when we don't play enough. Like we're not having enough fun. I
Yeah.
say to start rediscovering your creativity is just play. Like don't put pressure on
Mm-hmm.
yourself to be able to like have something like a painting or whatever. Just have fun. Like go on a trip that you've always wanted to go on. And I really do feel like new experiences really strike up creativity, right? It gives you some material to work with. Like, oh wow, I'm inspired by this thing. You know, what are you
Mm-hmm.
taken
Yeah.
with? What do you feel good? I'm listening to. Like, I really feel like it could be
Mm-hmm.
basic as going outside into the grass and like picking up a blade of grass and looking at it. Like
Yes.
changing our
Yeah.
perspective, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like
Nature
being
provides like so much inspiration.
it
Yes, absolutely.
does. It
Mm-hmm.
does. And yeah, I would say not to overthink it. I think that we overthink it. We think creativity is like, oh, I have to make a painting or I'll have to sing a song or write a book. No,
Mm-hmm.
creativity is everywhere. Creativity is doodling on a piece of paper. Creativity is creating
Yes.
a new meal, trying a meal on Pinterest, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I think a good start would be to make a list of like I have like a playlist. I call it a
Oh,
playlist. Yeah.
yeah.
Like it's a playlist and it's things that I want to do for like the quarter. Like this fall I want to X, Y, and Z. And so on that playlist I have things one that bring me joy, but also things that pique my interest that I may want to try. And so I'm just like, okay, let's try that.
Oh,
Let's do that. Let's see what happens. So
that's
yeah.
amazing. You just gave me a new idea.
Yes.
A
Yes, please
playlist.
take it. Yes.
Yes. Because I know Being in the Garden, which is the
Mm,
community that you lead for Black women rediscovering our creativity,
yeah.
that was one of the things. How can you tap back into play? Because a
Yes.
lot of us feel like life is just so serious. Once you enter
Yeah.
adulthood, you don't have space to play, to experiment.
Yeah.
And that was like, that experience is one of the inspirations behind the creative play date that we hosted with MNT the artist and Lavin Dula
Which
chat.
was amazing.
Oh, thank
Yes.
you. Thank
Of
you.
course. Of course.
But it was just, yeah, taking time to do what brings you joy. And that's all
Yes.
I did during that play date is doodle. And that was fine
Yes.
because
Yes.
that's what I needed during that time. So,
Yeah.
yes, that is so powerful. Just giving yourself time and space to play
Yeah.
and just rediscover what you like
Yeah.
to do. It's that
Exactly.
simple, really.
It is. It really is. And can I offer one more thing too?
Yeah,
Like
absolutely.
if you are in a place where like you feel dry and you don't really know like, oh, it's lightning outside. Okay. Well, if you're in a place that you feel dry and you don't really know where to start, I would say go back to what did bring you joy as a kid. Like seriously. If you finger
Mhm.
painted as a kid, get some paint from Target or wherever else and pick colors that you like and finger paint. Like do
Yeah.
something that actually grounds you, that keeps you still and quiet for a second. Cuz the thing about creativity as a child, we didn't have a lot of noise in our mind going on. You know what I mean?
True. That's very true.
Like there wasn't a lot going on. So we had to figure out something and be creative, right? And I think that if we get in a room with ourselves, close the door, turn on some music, right?
Hmm.
Just
Yeah.
put your finger to paper and paint and see what happens. It like that can be a
Wow.
meditative practice. Like it could just be
Yeah.
you and the paper and like, oh wow, that's cool. And then hang it up. Just like you would hang up a
Mm.
kid's painting, put it on your refrigerator, right? To remind
Oh,
yourself
I
to
love that
play.
idea.
Yes. Yes.
I have never thought about finger painting, but like,
Yeah.
yeah, that
Yeah.
is true. Just give it, wow.
That's
Okay.
it. Because you're not worried about what it looks like. And I think that's a difference. Like kids are just doing stuff. They're
Mm.
making mud
That's true.
pies. They're not
That's
worried about
true.
what it looks like. They're like, I made this thing, it's amazing. As adults, we
Hmm.
get in our head, we're judging everything. And I think it's important to get back to things that we're not good at, right? That we haven't mastered and things that just like make us happy because, oh, I like colors. I like
Right.
yellow. You know, like
Right.
that basic. Yeah.
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 The simple things. Absolutely.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you. Thank
Of
you.
course.
Um, so that goes perfectly with the next thing, actually. Self validation. So a
Mm,
lot of us are taught to seek external validation. So, seeking someone else's approval for what we create
yes.
in order for it to be perceived as good. So, in leaning into self validation and moving through fear and self doubt, which are very real, right?
Yes.
What does that look like for you as an artist these
Oh,
days?
that's a good question. Thank you for asking.
Hmm.
For me, it looks like okay. First of all, I want to say that I struggle with that too. I struggle
Okay.
with. I have not arrived to the place where I'm just like I'm
Yes.
confident. I'm doing my thing. With everything I create, I have self doubt. Everything, like everything I
Mm.
make, everything I put in there, like
Yeah.
even though I'm like, yeah, I like it, but well, they like it or I like it, but this little thing right here is imperfect, right? Focusing
Right.
on little things that people don't even notice. Like it's not
Right.
that serious. But I would say one, I want to say that it's okay to want validation. It's okay to want to be wanted,
Mm.
right? It's
Hmm.
okay. Like we're human, we're in community. That's what community is for, to
Right.
validate, to see. Even as like parents, right? This the idea like of ideal parents anyway. Like you're
Right.
looking at your parents' face like, oh, you look just like me. Like in some way you're validating my existence, my experience. You know what I mean? Like as a child.
Hmm.
And so I
Right.
think that the problem is when we base our entire worth and value and the value of the art that we create or whatever we create on what other people are saying. Um,
Right.
and so how I work through that, honestly, sometimes I post and run.
Me
I
too.
post,
I
yes,
do that too.
yes. Like because the voices can be
Yeah,
loud, and
I
if I
can.
listen to myself too long, I'm not gonna do it. So what
Yeah.
I'm gonna do? Post it and log off. Go do something
Hmm.
else,
Yes.
like, and then come back to the thing. Um,
Hmm.
because sometimes you do have to do it in spite of. Sometimes the feeling of self doubt doesn't go away, and still I'm just like I'm more committed to creating my art. Like my husband asked me, like, are you more concerned about what people think about you or about the art that you want to make? Like, what's more
Mm.
important to you?
Right.
And I realized I was like, the art I want to make.
Hmm.
That's what's most important to me. Even
Right.
though I am scared, right? It's both. And so I'm just like, okay,
Right.
I'm committed to doing the scary thing and I'm going to do it. And here
Hmm.
we are. Like,
Right.
what we talked before this, right? Like when I'm singing, I'm shaking. I feel like I can't breathe. I'm sweating. My stomach hurts. And
Yeah.
then I start singing. I just start. And
Hmm.
then halfway through the song, I'm like, I like this song. This is fun. you
Yeah.
know, this is a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But it takes that taking that first step into the thing is always scary. Like it's
Mm.
scary and it's
It's so
normal because
scary.
it's new. It's different.
Yeah.
You've never been here before. Even if you performed at the
Right.
same place over and over again, you've never done it before today. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? So giving
Yeah.
yourself grace and then telling yourself you're going to be okay. It's
Mm.
going to be
Hmm.
okay. Either like even if people boo you, it's going to suck, but you're gonna get up and you're gonna be okay. Like you're at
Hmm.
the end, you're not gonna die. Like that's why I have to keep saying to myself, I'm not gonna die. It's
Yeah.
gonna be okay. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And
But
that's
self
powerful.
kindness.
Self
Yeah,
kindness.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And that's powerful, I think, because a lot of us like see all the amazing things that you create and put out there. And we're like, there's no way that you could be scared because you're so
Horrified.
amazing doing all these things. So that's powerful to see, like, no, like you
Yeah.
still experience those feelings of
Oh
fear
yes.
and self doubt, but you're able to
Yeah.
still,
Yeah.
go through it and
Yeah.
post,
Yeah.
your art and share your art with the world.
Yeah.
It's
And
amazing.
I'm hoping that that's freeing for people because like
Yeah.
I don't ever want people to feel like, oh, she's arrived. She knows what she's doing. No, I don't. I'm guessing and figuring it out and doing the best I can. And then I go along with
Mm.
it. And like that again, that fear means you care. Like I
Right.
think it was Jamal who explained like your fear means that you actually care about what you're doing. Like I used to say, why am I so
Mm.
nervous before I go live on YouTube? Why am I so like sweaty already? And it's like
Right.
because you care about what you're doing. And I'm like, you're right. Like
Oh,
you're
that's true.
attached to that thing,
Yes,
So yeah.
that's very true. Yep. And I think that's something else. Like, even though if you, like, even if you may feel fear, you may feel scared to do something, you can still move.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that you
Yes.
can't, you have to stay still and not share it with the world. You can still
Mm-hmm.
move. You can still recognize the fear and, like, still post it. So
Yeah.
powerful. Yay.
I love that.
Just going to read some of the comments here. Hey, hey, hey. Yes, please hit the like button. Thank you, Colette.
Yes.
Mara says, girl, I watch my videos a few days after I post. Listen, me too. Me too.
Yes.
I definitely do. Because I also post and run. Because it's like sitting around waiting, like, to see, how many likes it gets,
Mm-hmm.
to see if it gets any comments. Like, no, that's not the purpose of why I'm doing this. And
Facts.
that, like, kind of takes me away from my center. So,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely, absolutely. Do it in spite of. Yes, yes, yes. I loved
Oh,
Bean. Oh yeah, yeah. Bean is beautiful. Bean is your new EP,
it
which kind
is.
of inspired me to title this a fireside chat because it felt like cozy. It felt like fall vibes
I love
with a
that.
blanket with some hot
Yes.
cocoa. I'm like, yes. So I
Yes.
did link Bean in the description
Aw.
section too.
Thank you so
Um,
much.
yeah, but I would love to hear like your inspiration behind this
Yeah.
EP if you'd like to
Yes.
share.
Sure. So, Being is actually a collection of loops that I have created over the past like 3 years.
Mm,
Um, and I was okay. So, how I even started like doing vocal music, I really was like, I need a band, I need all this stuff, and I didn't have it. I can't like I can play
right.
guitar to get the idea across, but I'm not like a guitarist. And
Right.
so I was like, it's not working. I'm never going to be able to make music. And then I did a cover of Because He Lives, which is a hymn
Mm-hmm.
that I really enjoy. And I did it with my straight vocals. And I sent it to my husband. I was like, yeah, what do you think of this? Like, I'm just playing around in the studio. And he's like, you should do more of this. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, do you think people would actually just listen to my voice? Like, that's not
Yes.
enough. And he's like, yes.
Yes.
Yes. And this is why I have to like give credit where like in honor where honor is due. Like the
Yes.
vocal music I'm creating is inspired by my grandmother, is inspired by my mother, my
Mm.
aunts. Like the harmonies and the playing around, like all of that is inspired by them. And so I'm just like, you know what? If they were in church singing this song just like by themselves vocally, and like why can't I do the same thing? Like that
Right.
music, the stomping and clapping in the church, like that, like why can't that be the same thing? Why can't I do that as well? So I did it.
Mm-hmm.
And so being is are loops that I created while just being, while just existing, like loops
Mm-hmm.
that were meditative to me, loops that I had fun creating. They had no words, and at first I felt like, well, there's no lyrics to these songs, so like, what am I gonna do with these? And I'm like, you know what? What if I just put these songs together and share it? Like,
Right.
they're still deserving of being heard. Not, maybe they don't have words, or maybe there's some of them are murmuring or humming. And I think about like even prayer,
Mm-hmm.
just thinking about like there's a scripture that basically talks about, even when we don't have the words to say, like spirit prays on our behalf when we're moaning and groaning. And I think that sometimes
Mm.
we
Mm-hmm.
can try to like intellectualize spirituality, like, oh, I need to put words to this thing. And it's like sometimes you don't have words. Sometimes it's just feeling. Sometimes it is just chord or note or harmony or melody. And I think that sometimes that can be prayer as well. That can be a spiritual practice, a meditative practice as well. And so creating those loops was meditative for me. Like it was
Right.
calming to me. It was fun to me. And so I wanted to share that with other people, and hopefully it gives people calm as well. So when you say like it's
Mm-hmm.
cozy, I'm like,
It
yes.
is. It's so
Thank you.
cozy.
Thank you.
I heard it. I'm like, okay, where's my blanket? Because
Oh,
it's fall now.
yay.
Yes, I love it. I love it. Yeah, and something else you shared, like the power of intergenerational wisdom, which is something we talked about in Patreon during the last sunroom session, which I
Yeah.
also linked in the description if y'all want to
Oh,
join
thank
the
you.
Patreon. But what do you see as the value of intergenerational wisdom, especially when it comes to music and sharing
Yeah,
stuff like that through generations? That's powerful.
it is. I think when I'm singing, I often say that I am singing not just with my voice, but the voices of my ancestors, right? Like my
Mm,
voice, my vocal cords, literally, my DNA is made up of people who came before me, right? Of the voices of other people. And so when I'm singing, I honor that. When I'm singing, I honor God who gave me the voice, but also the ancestors who came before me, who gave me my voice,
yes. Yeah.
who didn't. And I think about the people whose names I don't know, whose voices I'll never be able to hear. And so I
Wow.
feel, I feel a responsibility almost to like, I have to sing. I have to sing
Mm,
for the people who were singing whose voices were not recorded or shared or honored or seen as sacred, right? Like,
right.
so using my voice to do that. Wisdom though, like even musically, there's a
Hmm.
lot of, I thought about going to music school, right? And I was like, because I don't know enough, right? I was like, I don't know enough. I don't know how to read music or whatever. And then I'm saying to myself, like, but I have studied music. Maybe not in school, but
Right.
I've studied my mother, I've studied my aunts, I've studied my grandmother. Like I've studied the music that I heard in church, or like, Shaka Khan, or like all these other people who came before me and sharing their wisdom. Like when they're sharing their vocal talents, they're
Right.
also sharing their wisdom. So
Hmm.
music, just by listening to people who came before us, like you get information. Like there's, again, I'm a geek about music, right? And so when I listen
Yeah.
to, I did a whole, like on Patreon, I did a whole episode on one song nobody
Yes.
knows. Yes, like
Yes. I
one of my
love
favorite
that.
songs. Yay! I'm glad. Thank you for listening. But the song, like nobody knows you when you're down and out, right? The
Hmm.
lyrics to that song, right? And it was the first time I heard it was by Bessie Smith, and so Bessie Smith sang it, and many people covered it. But even when they covered the songs, they brought something new to that song, new wisdom. Some people improvised on the song and added a new verse, and like we are in an age where we have access to all this music, and all this music is teaching us something. All of it is, if we would listen, not just to the words but the voices, like the stories of the people, finding out about their lives. Like I deep dive into the artists and where they grew up, and
Yeah.
all these different things, what they did. Um, but I think in general, like I I love my elders. I love my
Hmm.
elders. I love my ancestors. When I am around an older person, I want to soak up all their wisdom. Tell
Me
me
too.
everything.
Yep.
Tell me
Yeah.
all your stories. And
Yeah.
it makes me sad because we live in a society that's like so ageist that we're missing out
Hmm.
on that wisdom because we
Yes.
think that people that are older than us don't matter or are silly or are to be thrown
Hmm.
away,
Yeah.
when that is where our wisdom lies. That is where the wealth really is. That's the gold, not in this,
Right.
this youthful focused society. It's like, no,
Hmm.
they know.
Right.
So yeah, yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. And I can learn
Yeah.
also from people coming up under me. Like, it's not just like
True.
older. Like, no, I'm learning from people my age, older than me, and underneath of me. And so I think
Hmm.
all of us connected are important. All of us have something to offer. All of us have wisdom. Yeah. So yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And yeah, I feel the same way. Like I grew up
Yes.
around, my grandparents,
Yeah.
my great grandparents, just hearing their wisdom and
Yes.
soaking it up. And that's why I feel like I'm kind of older than my age sometimes because I'm like, I've heard stories, y'all.
Yes. Yes.
So yeah, that's very, very powerful. And something else you mentioned, like the ancestral connection.
Mm-hmm.
So in working with, so I worked with Coach Yolanda and exiting the toxic job that I was in, and that
Yeah.
was one of the things she mentioned to me. Maybe your ancestors are mad at what you're
Mm.
going through, and it's on you to share with other people.
Yes. Wow.
So
Yeah.
that's powerful to
Yeah.
just reestablish those ancestral connections that were
Yes.
severed
Yes.
sometimes by enslavement.
Mm-hmm.
Just reconnecting with what people experienced
Yeah.
to be able to tell their stories, to be a
Yes.
conduit, as you always say, right? To share
Yes.
what
Yeah.
they went through because so many of them could not because it was unsafe to do so. So yeah, yay.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Just looking at the comments. Yes, thank y'all so much for commenting too. But yeah, going right along with that. I love how this is just flowing. I often see people ask, like in the comments in the chat, how do you have so much wisdom at such a young age? So I wanted to pose that question to you. How do you have so much wisdom at such a young
Ooh.
age?
Well, thank you. Thank you for thinking I have wisdom or saying I have wisdom. I I'm a learner, right? Like I do listen to my elders. That's the first thing. I listen to my elders. I do a lot of self-reflection. Um
Mm,
and I'm realizing I feel very convicted about what I believe. It's just that I was taught, like in school, like we can't deviate from this belief, right? But something in me always knew, like, no,
mm-hmm.
no, I don't really. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna hold my
Yes,
tongue, but no.
yes.
Um, and I think about the people I come from. My mother's very smart. My mother's
Mm,
very smart.
yeah.
And I also think that, sadly, because of sad situations I've been through, I had to grow up fast. I had to figure it out. Like I had to, you know,
Mm,
at some point, sadly, you have
yeah,
to grow up, so to speak, pretty
yeah,
fast.
yeah.
Which, I mean, that could be trauma informed, but also I'm kind of grateful for it. Not that I went through it, but I'm grateful for the lessons I got from it.
Right,
But I
right.
really believe that we're all wise,
Mm-hmm.
and the information is inside of us, but we have to be quiet enough and we have to validate what we feel. Like, we're wise. Like, okay, we're
Mm-hmm.
wiser than we put on. Like, we're wiser than we think we are,
Yes,
right? Like,
true.
it's just that we've been taught that to not trust ourselves and not trust what we think or believe.
Mm-hmm.
But also, like, the books that I've read from other people, I like reading. I like taking in new
Too.
information.
Mm-hmm.
And I always, even though I have like, yes, I'm a believer, I still take in other things. Like, I'm not just like, this is exactly what it is. I'm always like, well, what is? It's never, to me, in my mind, a lot of stuff is not black and white. There's something in between. Like, what is that? What's going on?
Mm-hmm.
But just a lot of introspection, a lot of prayer, a lot of reading.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and the people around me. I think I hang around pretty wise people, so they keep me sharpened. You know what I mean? I can't just take all the
Yeah.
credit. Like, I'm
Uh-huh.
around pretty dope people, so yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and also people
Yeah.
online like you sharing, like,
Oh
seriously,
yeah,
like
thank you. Yeah.
sharing your wisdom, like, for real, like, that's, yeah,
I
serious,
appreciate that.
of course.
And yeah, you touched on something, not trusting our wisdom. I
Mm-hmm.
think that's so key.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and I just did a video on like, why is self promotion so hard? We don't trust ourselves often because someone has made a remark, someone has told us to dim our light, not take up too much space. So we
yes,
begin like questioning ourselves and our gifts. and our wisdom. And I think that is so powerful, tapping back into that. You're like,
Yeah.
no, we are wise. Like you
Yes.
said, we are wiser than we think.
Yes.
We
Like you
have
don't you
wisdom that lives inside of us. Yeah.
yes. Like sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Like
No, 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 no.
I was just agreeing. Like I'm like yes, absolutely. Like
Mm-hmm.
you don't get this far along in life without wisdom. You
Yes.
just don't. Like there's
Mm-hmm.
no way. Like you have to be wise to stay alive. So like
Yeah,
staying alive is a lot of
that's
work.
true.
Like I think that we really
Wow.
it is a
That's like a
lot
whole
of
it
work.
is a lot of work.
Like
It is.
we undermine ourselves and in our
Mm-hmm.
capabilities even in survival mode. Like if you're in like if you have to have had been in survival mode, like you get very creative. That's when people say like I'm not creative. Have you ever been broke and figured out how to eat?
Mm-hmm.
That's creativity and wisdom. Okay, that's like
Yes.
have you ever
Yes.
figured out like how to cross the street, even that the basic stuff like measuring time and distance and velocity, like all that's we are physicists, right? We might not
Yeah.
have a degree but it's the same thing. And so I think because we don't feel that we have the credentials, right, to do these things. Like, oh, I don't have the PhD. Not saying that that's not important, by the way, but
Right.
like not saying that that's not important, but we think that because we don't have these credentials that other people created, that somehow we are unwise, that we are the lay people, we are bottom. It's like no, like the wisest people I know don't have degrees. Like
Mm-hmm.
if I'm thinking about my elders, they didn't
Yeah.
have degrees. My
Mm-hmm.
great grandmother, who was born 1912, me
Yeah.
and my mother were talking about, like I was talking to her about something because I was writing something back and forth and doing math problems because I liked doing math problems as a kid, but
Mm-hmm.
I liked it.
Me
And
too.
yes, yes, I loved workbooks. I love it.
Love
So
that we're nerding out. Yes.
yes,
Yes.
yes, I feel seen. I do. So I would share these problems with my great grandmother, my granny,
Mm-hmm.
and I would realize that she would get some of the things wrong, right? And even as a kid, I knew like, okay, maybe she doesn't know these things. And so I just put it down because I didn't want her to feel ashamed. I don't think she cared, whatever. Like, but I didn't
Mm-hmm.
want her to feel any shame around it. But I
Yeah.
realized like, no, but my granny's a smart woman. She's a wise woman. And I
Mm-hmm.
don't even think she had like a high school education. You know what
Right.
I mean? So like these
Mm-hmm.
people, they know. Like
Yeah.
they know.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. So I think that we all do that a little bit like, "Oh, I'm not as wise as this person." It's like, "No."
Yeah.
And what I will even say is like if something, and I keep saying this, but like if something someone says resonates with you, it's something that you already knew.
Mm.
When you feel that like,
Wow.
yes, right? You knew that already. That's
Yeah.
the reason why it resonates with you because it was already inside of you. Like, oh my
Right.
gosh, like that opening, that feeling seen, it's because you have it inside of you already. Sometimes it just takes
Mm.
time just to sit there and reflect and really figure out like how do I feel about this thing? What are my thoughts? Not
Right.
taking in other people's thoughts. What do I think about that? So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that.
Of
Oh my
course.
gosh.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, I'm gonna read Colette's comment. She
Oh,
says, "Yes, I grew up with my grandmother, great grandmother, and great great grandmother." Wow.
that's
On my
beautiful.
mother's side, they used to tell me stories. It was like I was assigned to be the family historian at a young age. Colette, that's beautiful. Oh my gosh.
It is.
Yes, and I can relate to that. Just having like that intergenerational wisdom,
Yes.
being able to hear people's stories, what they went through,
Yes.
and especially as a young person when you're growing up, because we haven't done life before. Like this is the first time. Like so,
Yes.
having that wisdom
Yes.
to rely on their stories, that's very powerful, and it can steer you. It can
Mm-hmm.
guide you in the right direction. So
Mm-hmm.
yes, absolutely. Gorgeous one. We've had to learn to be resourceful, and that's valuable.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. Because I definitely just wrote down like enslavement, the creativity
Yes.
that was demanded to survive enslavement.
Mm-hmm.
That's out of this world, right? Like, whew. So yes, we are
Yeah.
creative people, and it lives
Yes.
inside of us. That
Yeah.
creativity. Mm-hmm.
And we're so creative that they exploited it. Like this, like
Yes.
that's how creative we are. We
Yeah.
make nothing. We make something out of nothing. Like out of
Mm-hmm.
nothing. I think about even the fact that we're still alive. Like black folks are still alive.
Think about that too. Yeah,
What?
it's
Like
true.
given the least, put in the worst conditions, and even still, like we still, even with your scraps, with your
Yep.
starvation, with your
Yep.
negligence, all these things, like we still thrived and survived for most part, but thrived in their own way. And so,
Right.
like, there's no way that I'm going to call myself stupid because I don't come from stupid people. I'm not going to call myself unwise because I don't come from unwise people. Like, there's
Yes.
nothing that I can't do with all my privilege and access. Like,
Ooh.
whatever my ancestors did, like,
Yes.
I can match. Like
Mm-hmm.
I have them inside of me. I got that fire. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep.
I try not to self-deprecate too much because I did that a lot. Like growing up, like I was like, oh, not good enough.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Me
really had to
too.
say to myself, by saying that I'm not good enough, I'm saying that people who came before me aren't good enough either. Like, and I don't
That's
believe that.
true. That's true.
I don't
Oh my
believe that.
gosh.
So,
And you know what? I'm just thinking about like in toxic workplaces, right? We hear all these like remarks thrown at us sometimes, questioning our abilities, like making us doubt ourselves.
mhm.
And if we really were able to like connect, you're actually talking about my ancestors when you're telling me that, and I have an
Yep,
issue with that.
it's
Like,
disrespectful.
wow, that's powerful.
Yeah, yeah,
Gosh, ancestral connections. Yes, yes,
yes.
yes. And yeah, you said something else about like lived experience, right?
Hmm.
Is on the same level as academic knowledge because we're often taught that we have to have all these degrees, right, in order
Yes,
to say something and it be legitimate. But why can't our
yes,
lived experience be legitimate? Because a
exactly.
lot of
Oh,
folks with degrees don't have the lived experience, and I know that coming from a social work field, it's like you can only learn so much from a textbook. If you don't have the lived experience of the people you're serving, what are you doing? You
yeah,
know?
yeah.
So, yes,
Because
if you did want to
every
say anything about that.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, like because even when you're talking about this, everything in theory makes sense, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
it's what is it? The Mike Tyson quote? I don't know. It's violent, but it's like everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face, right? I really feel like in theory we have these ideas of like, oh, in this
Yes.
situation I would X, Y, and Z. Like we have like mock cases or whatever the heck. Like oh yes, in this I would do X, Y, and Z. But it's not until you're actually living that you realize oh some of these things on paper make sense, but in real life they don't work, right? In real life, it's not appropriate. So even studying, again, like the deaf studies, deaf culture, like yeah, on paper,
Yes.
some things because I was studying to be an interpreter, and so even as an
Oh, wow.
interpreter, yeah,
I
yeah
didn't know
so,
that.
so even as an interpreter,
Mm-hmm.
there are decisions you have to make on the fly depending on the person you're talking to, what the situation is, what they call it like register. So
Yeah.
how I talk in an auditorium to like 1,000 students is very different than how we're talking right now versus like how I talk with my family. Like we all have coded language in whatever
Yes.
place we're in. And
Yeah.
so even like this idea of like what is appropriate, right, changes. Like yeah, the textbook says this, but I know in my soul, in my gut to do this. And it might not be what people would,
Yes.
recommend, but it's like, no,
Yes.
I know I need to do this though. And
Mm-hmm.
so because we're focusing on these textbooks and these teachers and professors and whoever, we're denying ourselves, but like I think that we need to bring like our soul and our spirit to those places and
Mm-hmm.
pushing your intuition down and all
Yeah.
this. No, like you need to bring yourself to whatever it is that you're doing. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
like and not discount yourself to say like, oh well, it's not what the book says, or it's not what my professor says, or it's not what my degree says. But you have a knowing. Like everybody has a knowing like in them. And we have to
Mm-hmm.
listen to that and honor that sometimes.
Yeah, that's
Anyway.
true. That intuitive knowledge is so
Yeah.
powerful, and there is no room for that
No.
in these institutions.
No.
Because I was never, again, going back to social work, I have a lot of thoughts about social work program I went through. But
No.
yeah, we were not taught to check in. How does it feel when
Mm-hmm.
someone tells you this?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, no, just follow this procedure. So it like takes us out of the power
Mm-hmm.
that we have, like that intuitive knowing. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Yes.
Let me share some comments here. Yes. Creative survival is how we got soul food head wraps. Absolutely. Yes.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Yes, yes, yes. Preach. Yes, agreed. Okay. Dr. Kamani says, I love conversations uplifting our ancestors. I have a card on my desk that states, my ancestors are moving mountains to see me rise. Oh, wow. That is so powerful. Yes, yes. And I think me being able to reconnect with my ancestors by working with Coach Yolanda really helped me finally be able to leave that toxic environment because I'm like, okay, my ancestors wouldn't want this for me. Why am I?
Absolutely not.
It made the decision so much easier when you're
Yeah.
able to reestablish those. So yeah.
Yeah. I if I can say something about
Yes,
that, like
please.
I
Hmm.
think even where I am today, as far as like healing from like overwhelm and burnout and like hustle culture and grind culture and all, because I did all of it, right? I
Yes.
really sat there for a second and I really talked about ancestors. So I've been collecting information about my ancestors and they have like death certificates that you can see. their spouse is signing, and like the cause of death. And a lot of cause of death for my ancestors was heart disease in some way, like heart
Oh,
attacks, different things like that, strokes, cancers, these kinds of things, things that are like stress induced.
yes. Yeah.
And I sat in my car and I really said to myself, like, would it be honoring to my ancestors to die of a heart attack because I'm overworking myself? Would that be like, in all the things that they did because they didn't have a choice, right? To get me to where I am right now, would it be honoring to them for me to pass away right now because I'm overworking myself, because I'm stressed out? No, that would not be honoring to them. And so I think that was actually helpful in my wanting to slow down and calm down. Like, okay, let's let's take a breath for a second, because my ancestors, the people who came before me, like even my parents, growing up in a different time, different things were required. They didn't have the things that we're afforded now, the access to information, the connections to other people. A lot of
Yes.
other opportunities weren't made available. And so I'm thinking, like, how can I best honor my ancestors? By resting, by taking my time, by following the dreams that are in my heart, by doing the thing, by showing up scared and still. I think about, again, like I said, my great grandmother, who I knew, born 1912. I'm sure she faced things that I will never have to face and never understand. She's been in situations that have been scarier than anything I can imagine. And even in still, like, she allowed me, her work allowed me to be here. And I'm like, okay, how can I best honor them by leaving this job?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Leaving this job, because
that's true.
I'm not finna die here. And the reason why I say that is because
Mm.
my body was breaking down at the last job that I had. Like, my
Mm-hmm.
body was, I was in the MRI, I was in physical
Mm.
therapy, I was at the chiropractor every week, right? Like, because they couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. And it was the job. The job was
Mm-hmm.
stressful. I was sitting down all day. It also made my heart heavy because it was a nonprofit hospital. So I had a lot of older patients on Medicaid who would come
Yeah.
in,
Yeah.
and they would be like crying because they don't have enough medication. They don't have enough money to pay for their medication, and people were
Mm.
taking advantage of them. It was just a very emotionally taxing job. And
Right.
I said to myself, once I got married, my husband basically, you don't have to work here anymore. You don't have
Mm.
to, which I'm grateful for, because
Yeah.
everybody doesn't have that opportunity. But I'm also a quitter. I quit.
Yeah.
I will quit a
Yeah.
job. I will quit like a
That's
thing.
amazing.
You
Because so
know?
many of us are taught that we have to stay in something that's harming
Yeah.
us and we can't quit.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
fact that you were able to do that is powerful.
Yeah. And
Mm-hmm.
it's scary. Like, it's scary, and it was
Yeah.
met with a lot of like, this is not a wise decision,
Yeah.
right? But like, for
Mm-hmm.
me, like, I would rather, and I know this, whatever, I'm just gonna say it. I would rather be broken healthy than like at a job and like broken down and stressed out and burned out and having to go to a chiropractor every week, to physical therapy, and they can't figure out what's wrong with me. But once I left the job, I felt better. Like, I remember it was so bad. I was laying down, my lower back was hurting so bad. Like, it felt like it was being severed. I don't even, like, I don't know what was
Mm-hmm.
wrong. But
Yeah.
like, after I left, it subsided. I don't I don't
Mm.
know. You know what I
Mm-mm.
mean? Of course I went to the chiropractor, and I do shout out to her because she's amazing. It was a black woman
Mm-hmm.
chiropractor who got me
Mm.
together. But basically
Mm-hmm.
she told me that my spine looked like I had severe trauma to my back. And I'm
Oh,
like,
wow.
I haven't done anything, but I'm carrying that stress in my back. That's what's happening.
Yeah.
I'm clenching at work all the time. That's not healthy. Yeah, so anyway, but yes.
Ooh, you said so many things that resonated. Oh my gosh. Yes. Because our body holds the stress that we
Yes.
experience, especially like in toxic workplaces.
Hmm.
Like you can try to power through and try to tell yourself that, no, I'm just going to keep going. They're not going to run me out of here, which is what I did or before I left. But that stress stays in your body and affects your health.
Hmm.
It really does.
It does.
This is serious.
Hmm.
And I'm a VA and I'm working on Dr. Kamani's channel. I'm doing her thumbnails and stuff like that. But rewatching the interviews that she's had with Black women in toxic jobs, I'm like, it's hurtful to hear other
Yes.
people's stories and like what we experience in these workplaces is severe
Hmm.
trauma.
Hmm.
Like, this is not
Yeah,
okay. So thank
it's
you for
not.
sharing that.
Of course. Thanks for asking.
Okay, okay. I did want to ask you about alchemizing our pain
Hmm.
because this is something you talk about a lot. Not letting the pain just sit there, but kind of like alchemizing it, right?
Yeah.
Turning it into something that brings you joy,
Yeah.
helps other people. Do you have any tips on how you've done that or how other people can do that?
Yes. Ooh, so that messy middle that we were talking about with healing, that like
Yes.
snot nose crying, Like, that is energy that needs to leave your body. Like the tears, like there's science behind the tears that you cry when you're sad and stressed. They have chemicals in there that need to leave your body. Like it's releasing toxins from your body. And I feel like creativity can be used the same way. Like, don't quote me. I don't know if there's science behind it, but I know personally from experience
Yeah.
when I'm using creativity like to heal, it helps me. So I talked about before, I have an album called Matter. And I created this album because I went through a big friend breakup, like a whole group of friends that like broke my heart in a million pieces in a million different ways. And I didn't have any real way to metabolize it, right? Like it was just kind of sitting there with me. It was, and sorry, but trigger warning, I guess, but it made me think about ending my life. Like I
Yeah.
literally was,
I've had that too.
yeah, like I really thought like my life was over.
Yeah.
And you know, and I allowed myself to grieve. I allowed myself to be cared for by other people, by my real friends who were there for me, and they would be a listening ear. But at some point I was like, I need to do something else with this. Like I need to, like I was writing journals about healing, and some of them turned into songs. I wrote a song called like "The Sun Will Rise Again" as a song to myself, like you will feel better. Like hold on, like the sun will rise again. Like one of the lyrics is, everyone hates you. I know you only want to be loved. Like that's all I wanted. I just wanted to be loved. Oh, I feel like I'm gonna cry. But yeah, I appreciate that. And so I had to, in order to save my life, I had to create. Like I had to make something, and I was afraid. I was afraid of me creating the album and writing because it was also, I also wrote like poetry and prose and took pictures and made a book out of it too, basically like a journal. And
Yeah.
and I shared it, and I was worried about like how are people going to receive this? I don't know. And people resonated with it. And even before then, let me go back even further. Like I didn't see that there was a point to any of this except for it to be cathartic, right? Like let me just write it and just share and see what happens. But I wrote this book called Him, and it's an acronym, His Image Manipulated. And this was like my first publication. And
Yeah.
it was messy, but I needed to get it out. It was really talking about a lot of men that came in my life and felt like they broke me, right? So talking about my dad, talking about past lovers, all these different people. And I was at like a radio station or something, and this girl came up to me who I never met and was like, "Oh my God, I read your book. Thank you so much for writing it." And I'm like, "What?" Like, girl, that sob, like it's just a bunch of
Yeah.
it's a bunch of sad stuff. But
Yeah.
people need one to process their things, but also when we are processing our pain and being honest about it, it resonates with the people it needs to resonate with at the time that it needs to resonate, right?
True.
So there are works of art that I discover years after an artist has created, and I'm like, oh my God, yes. Like what you're saying, what you're communicating, what you're singing, what you're playing, or what you're writing, I resonate with that, right? Like Audre Lorde is one of those people. I just recently discovered her. Like in her
Yeah.
writing, I'm just like, oh
Yeah.
my God, yes, everything you're saying, you're giving me language for things that I feel. And
Right.
and I think that there's a lot of shame that we carry with like, oh, I can't share my story. It's
Yes.
embarrassing. Nobody wants to hear a sob story. But we know what it feels like when we hear a sad song that we need to hear and cry with. Like we know, right? Like
Yeah.
it's medicine. Even that, like the healing of ourselves heals other people. And not that that should be the motive. I don't think that we should do stuff like, I'm going to write this to heal other people. No, write it to heal yourself, or make it to heal yourself. Do the thing that you need to do to heal yourself. And then be grateful when other people are inspired by what you're sharing to heal. You know what I'm saying? Like that's
Yeah.
like an invitation for people. Like, thank you for seeing me. You know, like, yes.
Mhm.
So, excuse me.
Yeah.
So I'm learning how to. I've been an oversharer my whole life. I've been an oversharer my whole life, and I thought that there was something wrong with that, and I realized nothing is wrong with my vulnerability or my honesty or my oversharing. It's just that I was sharing with the wrong people who didn't honor it.
Yep. That's exactly what I was thinking. Because every time I hear that, I'm like, are you oversharing? Are you? Is it the wrong people who are not supporting you?
Yes,
Yes.
yes, yes.
Absolutely.
So yeah, so I think that we all have the ability to metabolize our pain into something. And maybe that's after you cry on the floor. Like maybe you don't need to make anything right now. Maybe what you need to do is create space for yourself to fall apart. I'm always a proponent. Listen, fall apart.
Right.
Seriously. Have a pity party, cry, turn off the lights, listen to sad music. And then
Right.
once you process, we need that process. Once you do that thing, how can I use this for
Hmm.
myself? Like
Right.
for myself, but also like, is this is this beneficial to other people? I'm gonna say that my friend Alexis, she uses a quote, and we were having a conversation. It was so profound, and I've
Hmm.
talked about it on my channel too, about how everything is compost, nothing is wasted. Everything in our lives are
Mm.
compost,
Hmm.
and it's alive, like it's alive, it's nourishing. And I think that even the parts that we're ashamed of, the dark parts that we think like are unsightly, that nobody wants to see, that stuff is nourishing to other people, even if we feel like it's
Yes.
a mess. it's
Hmm.
a, it's a mess. Like trash, like a banana peel is trash to somebody, but a banana peel going back into the earth is like fertilizer for the earth. Like, yes, thank you know what I'm saying? And so I think we just have
Yeah.
to find the people that it needs to speak to, if
Hmm.
that makes sense. So yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And like you said, sharing what we've been through, sharing our pain, other people resonate with that.
Yes.
And other
Yes.
people are healed through that.
Yeah.
So it's like the shame that we feel around, like, man, I shouldn't be sharing this. Like, what is this going to make me look like?
Yes.
It's helping
Oh no.
helping us. It's helping us heal. And that's
Yes.
like stored energy within our bodies when we don't express it to other
Yes.
people, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
And it just stays there. If it does stay there and you're
Yeah.
not able to express it, it can make you sick,
That part.
which you
Yes.
talk about a lot too,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And once you own it, you don't have to be ashamed of it anymore. Like nobody has that power over you. And once you share, like, yes, I
Mm-hmm.
did this. Yes, I experienced this. People can't weaponize that against you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yep.
because you're free. Like, yes, I felt that way. Okay, what you gonna call me? Like, yes, I struggled with depression. Yes, I struggled with not wanting to be here anymore. Like, trying to watch how I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying things, but not. But and so you're not gonna shame me for feeling that way because I already said it. I owned it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yep. Yeah,
you know
that's
what I'm saying?
true.
I'm free.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So yeah.
Yeah. That reminds me of like an Instagram post I just posted like a few weeks ago. Like
Yes.
when you own your
Yes.
truth, no one can use it against you. It's like the power that they used to have because you felt shame because other people
Yes.
try to put that on you.
Yes.
Once you share it, it's opened up. The secrecy doesn't exist anymore, so they don't have
No.
power over you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you realize
Powerful.
you're not alone because other people feel the
Mm-hmm.
same way.
Yep.
Like, oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep. And that's something I found like sharing my story on YouTube, which I was
Yes.
inspired by The
Oh,
Garden, which I also linked in the description,
thank
the
you.
waitlist to The Garden, because season 2 is coming.
Yes.
But yeah, that's how I was inspired to start my YouTube page, share my journey about healing from a toxic job and seeing all the comments that I've gotten from other Black women, especially being like, I went through this too.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
sharing our story, sharing what we've been through helps us heal.
Yes. Yes.
Hmm. Yeah,
Mm-hmm. Ooh.
just
Mm-hmm.
reading the comments here. Mara says, yeah, I definitely understand. I wish I had the strength to do the same. You do. You do.
Yes.
Toxic jobs are mentally draining. They are.
Yeah.
They are very mentally draining.
Yeah.
They're like, they suck all of your energy out. Yes.
And can I say something to that too,
Absolutely.
please?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Mhm.
I don't want
Mm.
anybody I don't want anybody to feel like, oh, I wish I was brave enough to do what you did.
Exactly.
No.
Hmm.
No. We're all
Yes.
brave. All of us are
Yes.
brave.
Hmm.
And also our circumstances are different, right? Like our situations are different. We have to honor that too. Like there is
True.
privilege in being able to leave a job. I gotta be honest
Yes.
about that. Like there is
Hmm.
privilege in that. And so wherever you are, in whatever way you can honor yourself, like do that. Um, just for me, like, and I'm not recommending this for other people.
Yeah.
I can't do it. Like I can't
Hmm.
like I
Yeah.
because I've experienced that, I can't do that anymore. Like I will leave a situation that I'm not content with or happy at or joyful
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
like it wrecked my body. You know what I mean? And I want to live a long time and have it be a good time too. And so that's why I did that. But I also had things to fall back on, right? Like
Hmm.
I'm living at my mother's house right now. Everybody don't have that
Yeah.
situation, that opportunity. Like so I just want to offer that. There's
Yeah. Thank
no
you. That's
shame.
true.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
There is no shame. Absolutely. Yep. Because, yeah, it took me a year plus to leave my job. And then I went back because I ended up being in credit card debt because the short term disability claim I filed was denied. So I had to, or I felt like I had to go back, right? I
Yeah.
didn't fully realize that other options existed for me at the time.
Yeah.
So there
Yeah.
is no shame wherever you are in your journey.
Mm-mm.
We've all been there. Yeah.
And it's brave to admit that
It
you don't want to be
is.
there.
It
That's
is.
brave. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. The story sounds like mine having health issues, pulling up and burnout, quit the job and started focusing on my health. That is a word. I'd rather be broken healthy. Yeah, yeah. And like being in toxic jobs really can do a number on our bodies,
Yes.
because when you are entering into an environment where you're experiencing mistreatment, abuse every day, spiritual abuse,
Mm-hmm.
that's going to have an effect on your body, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh,
Absolutely.
man,
Mm-hmm.
these jobs. I have a lot to say about jobs.
Same.
Hey, your journey to freedom. Yes, yes, yes. I feel like, especially if you are a people pleaser, a type A personality, you are literally squeezing yourself into something. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Same.
Me. Recovering people pleaser, though.
Yes. Absolutely.
In
Recovering.
discovering a lot of those roots are in childhood trauma.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yes, so
Mm-hmm.
bringing awareness to those wounds, I think, is pivotal in healing being a people pleaser, because it
Yes.
often stems from an abandonment wound.
Mm-hmm.
At an early age, we feel like we have to please people, keep them around, do whatever they say, so they
Mm-hmm.
won't abandon us. So,
Yeah.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
real.
I feel that. Yes.
Okay, her journey to freedom. I had to leave a great paying job due to a literally toxic job. My complaints fell on deaf. Oh, wow. Within the support of my husband, I was able to quit with no unemployment. Oh, yay.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Congrats. Yeah.
Yes, yes.
It's wild.
And I hate that it was toxic.
Yeah.
There are so many toxic jobs out here. It's like, in hearing everyone's stories and seeing like the patterns
Mm-hmm.
that exist, like the way that we're treated
Mm-hmm.
over and over. A lot
Yes.
of us go from one toxic job to another toxic job.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is not right.
It's not.
This is just not right.
It's not. And I really feel like a lot of jobs are just another plantation. Like we're seen as
Mm-hmm.
slaves. That's We're
Yes.
enslaved folks. We're seen as enslaved people to
Yes.
them. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
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 Absolutely. Yeah. I'm sorry
Mm.
that you had experienced that too.
Yeah.
Seriously. And thank you for sharing. Oh, thank you.
Yay.
Thank you. Yes, yes, yes. Okay. Colette says, I think when we share our pain and story, it gives others permission to acknowledge their own pain and tell their own story. Sharing is literally the gift that keeps on giving. It is. It really
Yes.
is. Storytelling is powerful.
Yeah.
It is. I know that's another thing that you focus on in your channel,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Storytelling, sharing our authentic stories, sharing what happened to us in
Yes.
community.
Yes.
Do you
Mm-hmm.
want to share anything about that? Like the power of storytelling
Oh,
for Black people?
yes. So I love, first of all, I'm a conversationalist. So if I'm over
Hmm.
talking, please let
No,
me know.
not at all. Not at
But
all.
I love having conversations with people. And it's really fascinating to me because a lot of people think that their stories are not interesting. They are.
Yes. Yeah.
Everybody's story is
True.
interesting.
Hmm.
But it's because we're living it. We're like, oh, this is normal, whatever. And it's like, no, that's fascinating, actually.
Hmm.
But I do think storytelling, like we are a storytelling people, right? I think about like literacy and all these things. A lot of our ancestors were not literate in terms of like book literate, right? Like
Yes.
English, written
Hmm.
English literate. But storytelling has always been a part of our culture, right? That's how we learn lessons. That's how we carry on traditions. We tell stories with the food that we cook. Our bodies tell stories of the people who came before us. Like storytelling is like what we're made up of. How we interact with other people tells a story. Like how we
Hmm.
feel about a certain person or feel about a certain thing. Like everything is
Yes.
storytelling. And I do believe, I do agree that with storytelling, we are setting other people free. Like we are connecting with each other,
Hmm.
and we're healing. And we're healing. When we are ashamed of our stories, we're kind of stuck, right? Like
True.
we're like, I don't really want to talk because it's almost like a
Hmm.
piece of us, right? Whether we talk about it or not, it's still a
Yeah.
piece of us.
True.
And the things that we're ashamed of, we don't have to be ashamed of it. I love storytelling. I love asking people questions like, "What's your favorite song and why?" Right? Like stuff like that.
Mm. Hmm.
Like what was when was the first time that when was the first time you felt loved? What was that like? Like I love
Mm.
conversations like that because
Hmm.
it really tells. It gives us. Oh, I never thought about that because I asked myself that. Like, when is that? Because I think that we will go through life like robots. Storytelling humanizes us. Like
Oh,
it connects us and
wow.
humanizes us.
That's
So
true.
yeah, yeah,
I gotta post that. Oh my gosh. That is true. It does.
yeah,
It does, because we're, like you said, we're often moving through the world at such a quick pace,
yeah,
because again, white supremacy capitalism forces us to work at inhuman paces.
yes,
And yeah, storytelling gives us a chance to slow down, share
Hmm.
what we've been through, connect with other people. It's resisting oppression in so many ways.
Yes. Yes.
Yes, yes.
And yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's all right. Because I think storytelling is
Mm-hmm.
medicinal. You withholding your story is like withholding medicine from somebody else. Like I really do feel like it's that big a deal. Like I think
Yeah.
we are withholding medicine from ourselves but also other people. So,
Wow.
I try to, when I feel that fear creeping up, it's like, no, my story deserves to be told. And I think about, and I keep going back to this, but I think about the people whose stories I don't know because
True.
they weren't seen
Yep.
as valuable enough to be listened to or to have their words
Mm,
written down or recorded,
yes.
right? And so one thing I'm gonna do is own my story because my story is not just mine. Like the story of how I got here, like the fact that I'm walking, the
Yeah.
continent of America in the first place, that tells a
Mm-hmm.
story. That like
Mm-hmm.
that's a story. And
Yep.
so even if the story starts here, like I want to make sure like future generations have those stories. My family at Philly, like will sit at the table and they'll just retell stories of their youth and things that have happened, and I just soak it all in. We're laughing, we're smiling, we're connecting, we're bonding, but we're also like carrying on our legacies. Like I'm listening to my uncles and my aunts tell their stories. My great aunt who just passed away, listening to her, I remember, so she had dementia and
Mm-hmm.
Alzheimer's. And so before she passed, I would just keep asking her questions like, yeah, tell me more about that. What happened here, right? And so while she was feeling like sharing, she would listen. And even in her life, even though there are things I didn't like that happened to her or didn't things I didn't agree with, I was still able to learn something from her life.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Yeah.
yeah, so I think that again, storytelling is medicinal and it saves
Mm-hmm.
it saves future generations and the people that we're doing life with. So yeah,
Yes. That was
yeah.
a whole word.
Oh,
Gosh. Yes. And that reminds me of, again, exiting a toxic job and having to go back to the literature because I was a Black Studies major in
okay, yeah,
college. And I felt like this push to go back to what I read,
yeah,
to narratives of people who were enslaved.
yes,
In one of the books I read, Life of a Slave Girl by Harriet Jacobs,
yes.
I was able to connect her story to what I was going through. In
That's wild.
2022, 2023,
Yes,
I'm like, so
yes,
yes, it does.
yeah,
It can
yeah.
save future generations. It's
Absolutely,
powerful.
absolutely.
Yes. Okay, just looking through the comments here. Okay, I guess you can move to the next theme. But the power of collaboration over competition,
Yeah,
just something you talk about a lot,
yeah.
especially with your recent video on envy and jealousy. But what is the power of collaboration? When we decide to collaborate, and kind of say, no, we don't want to compete with each other. We want to
Yeah.
collaborate on the things that we're working on to support each other in our shared missions.
Yes.
Yeah.
Ooh, the power of collaboration.
Hmm.
Worlds change. Like society changes, culture changes when we collaborate. I think that we do ourselves a disservice. One, when you're doing stuff by yourself, okay, let's go back. A lot of us are taught to do things alone. Like this
Yes.
is this is the way to
Uh-huh.
be celebrated and praised and seen. And I like to say that the most exhausted person is usually the most celebrated person. Like if the person is bending over backwards and doing the most, like doing all the things, they're like seeing like, yeah, that person has made it. They're what's the word, independent. They're
Hmm.
independent. They pull
Yeah.
themselves up by their own bootstraps, whatever. And that's not true.
That
Like there's
term.
no such
Yeah.
thing. There's no such
Hmm.
thing.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
like literally, it's so wild. This is wild. So I have like the Nat Ministries rest deck, and I was gonna
Yeah.
do. So I'm starting a new theme on like community. And so the rest deck that's in front of me right now, the card is I do nothing alone. My whole life is a collaboration.
Oh, wow.
That's wild. So 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 like I think, excuse me, even when we think that we're doing stuff alone, we're not. We're just
Hmm.
not honoring the people that have collaborated with us. Like even
Hmm.
if you're running a business by yourself, somebody's paying for your services, right?
Right.
That means
Hmm.
that you're doing life with them. You're not self-made. The people who you're serving are actually making you, right? And so I think
Yes.
life is easier when you're doing life with other people. Like when you're doing life
Hmm.
with other, you don't have to have all the resources, you don't have to have all the answers, all the stuff figured out. You can ask for help without feeling
Hmm.
ashamed about it. When you I mean fall, when you need time to rest or whatever, like people got your back. People
Hmm.
got you. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Because you have built community.
Hmm.
Collaboration brings new ideas to things that I only see from my own perspective. I have
Hmm.
blind spots just like everybody else, right? Like I can't see past here. If somebody is standing beside me, they could see something I can't see. You know,
Hmm.
they can bring something new. Like, oh, what a different perspective. Wow, I never thought of it that way. And it's no, and it doesn't mean anything. Like anything is less about me. Like, oh, I'm not less wise because somebody brought their opinion and it's different than mine. It's like actually this is wealth of wisdom. We can bring our ideas together. And actually maybe
Hmm.
there's a third way to
Yeah.
think because I never thought of it that way. You know, so
True.
collaboration has changed my life.
Hmm.
I've collaborated in music and songs. I have created my art. I gotta shout out my husband. I'm sorry. I have to. Like, I don't want to be that girl, but like, I don't. But like,
Do
he has helped me. He has helped me so much because he has put
yeah.
in perspective, like even the idea of singing without music. That was his idea.
Mm.
Like, just do that,
Yeah.
right? And I would have never thought that if I wasn't listening to anybody else. With my sisters, right? My friends, them offering suggestions to things like sure for art, but also just for life, right? Like what did you do in this situation? I'm struggling with this. I'm struggling financially, you know, I'm struggling in my marriage. I'm struggling, you know, with my dreams, my heart, my soul. Like having
Hmm.
people around me, like community makes me. And I feel like again, we do ourselves a disservice when we are closing ourselves off trying to be like the lonely island. Like, oh, I'm just doing
Hmm.
everything alone because really that comes from I know even for myself, I'll say
Hmm.
personally, for myself, it came from a lack of trust in people because people have let me down. But
Yes.
also it was a feeling of like I don't want to let other people down. I'm afraid to collaborate because what if I ruin this thing that I'm doing with them? Like it's too much pressure. I don't want to do it.
Hmm.
You know?
Hmm.
So let me go over
Yeah.
here. But also a part of that was pride. Was the fact that I was
Hmm.
celebrated for doing everything alone. Like, you're so
Yeah.
resourceful, you're so resilient. Like, so if I ask for help, am I no longer resourceful and resilient? And what does that mean about me? Like,
Mm.
what does that
Hmm.
mean if I'm not those things? Like, am I weak?
Right.
You know, am I late?
Hmm.
Like, what is it? But I think it took me time to realize, like, actually, it means nothing. It's brave to ask for help. It's brave to be in community. It's to be vulnerable
Hmm.
with other people. Like, that's huge.
It
That's huge.
is. Yeah.
And life becomes easier. You're like, oh, actually, none of that
Hmm.
stuff has to matter in this community because in a community of people who actually don't see me for what I do or what money I make or whatever, but who love me for who I am. And
Hmm.
because we have that like reciprocity,
Hmm.
like we're in
Hmm.
community together, you know? So I
Yeah.
don't have to audition and put on for people. I can just be in this community.
Right.
So yeah, collaboration is
Powerful.
important. Collaborating with the right people is important. But yes,
Yes.
yes,
Yes. That's key.
yeah, yes.
Yes. Yes. Yes. Yes. And I do want to be respectful of your time. I know we're
Oh
like,
yeah, yeah. You're good.
okay.
It's up to. It's fine.
Okay. I will read this too. Yes. Alicia Renece, you are a true gem. Yes. Make sure you stay protected. Your voice is so necessary. It's such a powerful thing that we have this format YouTube now. Wow. That's a beautiful
Thank
comment.
you. Thank you.
Agreed. Agreed. Striding through doors says I'm currently on 3 month personal leave from work. The first 6 weeks were really difficult. I was so exhausted and drained. Yeah. Even so, I'm in two minds about returning after this break is over. I have been there. Believe me when I tell you,
Mm,
yes, your body needs time to kind of recover from what you've been through because it's traumatic. So give yourself time to, rest, heal, and don't rush the process because it does take time to get
yeah.
back to where you were before you
Yes.
enter that traumatic environment. It's
Yes.
harmful. Dr. Kamani says it took me 3 years to leave that toxic job. I have been practicing self forgiveness
Mm,
of staying as long as I did before developing the courage to resign. Thank you for
mm,
sharing that.
mm-hmm.
And yes, I go through those feelings too. I'm like, why did I stay? But it's like, I think Coach Yolanda shared with me too. Like maybe you had to go through that to get to where you needed to be because you
Yes.
wouldn't be here. Like I wouldn't even have a YouTube channel. I wouldn't even be
Exactly.
sharing. I wouldn't have connected with you
Mm-hmm.
and like all these amazing women,
Yes.
if I
Yes.
hadn't have been through that. So
Yeah.
that's true.
Yeah.
That's true. Hey, Jessica. No, you're fine. You're fine. Okay, Colette says yes. I think there's an African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Yes, there
Yes.
is.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So true. So true. Finding what's true to me. I was raised to believe you do it alone. Don't show weakness, pride. I always knew it was wrong, but I was so
Mm-hmm.
fearful that it took until my late 40s to realize how to do it. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I see that. Yep. And I too was raised with that messaging.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, so I do want to talk about intention setting, and then we'll wrap it up because I don't want to,
Okay.
take
No
too much
worries.
of the time.
Listen,
But
I'm here.
okay, okay. So yes, the power of intention setting, right, to
Mhm.
create the life that you want.
Yes.
If you want to share anything about that, instead of
Yeah.
letting life just happen to you, which is what a lot of us feel like we have to do, right? Just throw up our hands and be like, well, whatever comes at me. But
Yeah.
when you set your intentions, when you chart your course before you
Hmm.
go where you want to go, it's powerful and can take
Yeah.
you in, directions that you may have never imagined before.
Yeah.
So if you have any thoughts about that, and also just embracing your agency and the power to
Yes.
choose.
Yes. Yes. That. Okay. So, yes.
Hmm.
So, agency, right? Like, I think that sometimes we think that we are choiceless, that we don't have
Hmm.
a choice in the matter. And I can understand that because we've been told that we don't, right? This is what you do. If you deviate from this thing, this idea, but other people say that you should do, then you're wrong. You have failed. And I think for myself, because I was trying so hard to fit into a system that was beating me up, basically was like, dragging me, and I'm just like, no, I'm trying so hard to be accepted by you, I don't understand. I never really took the time to check in and be like, what do I really want? What do I want to feel in my life? Like, what do I want more of in my life? And the reason why I love intention versus goal, because I think
Hmm.
goals are important and they're good. Intentions for me, when I'm setting my intentions, it's more about like, what do I want to feel more of? Right? Like, what do I want to experience more of? Like, yes, I want to put out the music. Yes, I want to start the course. Yes, I want to do the thing. But ultimately, these things are not going to give me fulfillment. They're not going to like these things aren't the source of my joy. So how can I on a regular daily basis like be
Hmm.
intentional with my time, with my energy, with what I'm watching, with what I'm eating, like with how I'm speaking to myself, right? So when I'm setting intentions for myself, it's usually about like, what do I feel? Sometimes I focus on like, what do I feel like I'm missing? Like, do I feel stressed out? Do I feel burned out? Maybe my intentions this month is to incorporate more rest in this
Right.
month, right? Like,
Hmm.
maybe maybe I'm feeling like I'm doing a lot of like work, but not enough like creating, because there's a difference for me. Like the work, you know what I'm saying? And the work
Hmm.
usually is, which I guess it could be both, but work for me, like the definition of work is doing
Yeah.
something in exchange for something else from someone else. So like I'm doing
Mm.
something in
Hmm.
exchange for likes, views, money, right? That's work to me. Where
Yeah.
creating is more like, what can I do creatively that's just for me? Like maybe I've been focusing too much on the work part. Can I go for a drive? Can I go for a walk in nature? Where's a restaurant I've wanted to try? Like, what museums? And so I'm in the DMV area, so our museums are free. So I'm like, let's go. Do I want to go to a museum and really being focused on giving myself what I need. Um, and so I love the intention because it feels softer than goal. Because like, 'cause sometimes it feels like if I don't meet this goal, I failed, right? But the
True.
intention is different. It's softer. It's like I intend to
Mm.
eat intuitively,
Hmm.
instead of like, oh, my goal is to lose 30 pounds. We don't care about that.
Yes.
I want to
Hmm.
eat into it. I want to listen to what my body is saying and feed it what it
Hmm.
needs. And if that's a
Yeah.
chocolate bar, it's a chocolate bar. If it's a cheeseburger, it
Yes.
is what it is.
Uh-huh.
Right? So
Yeah.
so I think intentionality is important. Um I and I hear what you're saying, like, okay, so
Hmm.
I'm sorry, I'm in my head about two things.
No, no, you're good. You're good.
Yes. So I think
Hmm.
there's room for softness and flexibility for life happening, because I don't want to be so focused on intention where I'm just like, I can't deviate from this plan. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Hmm.
it's like,
Yeah.
no, life does happen. Things do happen that we can't plan and that are not convenient. And I
Hmm.
know that especially recently, like people passing away, nobody could plan that, or that's not my intention.
Yeah.
But even still in that, what is the intention? What can I do here? And it's like, be honest with myself. That's my intention. Be honest with myself. Like in mourning, I'm sad.
Hmm.
My intention is to honor my sadness. My intention is to mourn and weep and cry. My intention is to spend time with family who are here while we're mourning as much as possible. Like,
Hmm.
it's almost focusing on what we can control and the uncontrollable, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
even with all the stuff going around, what can I control? Like, and that's what I focus on. Like, that's how I look at intention. Like,
Hmm.
yes. So
Hmm.
I don't know if that makes sense, but I hope it
Yeah.
makes
It
sense.
makes
So,
perfect sense. Yes. Thank you for sharing that.
of course, of course.
And you do have an intention setting
I
workshop coming
do.
up in
I do.
Patreon.
Thank you. I love
Patreon
my.
is linked in the description
Thank
section.
you.
Coming
That's
up
so
on
funny.
Sunday at 12
Yes.
Eastern,
Yes.
if y'all want to join.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is powerful. That is very powerful. Thank you for sharing that.
Of course. Of course.
And Colette says, I'm loving listening to and learning from my younger white
Oh,
sisters. Thank you. Thank you both for sharing your wisdom with us. Colette, thank
yes.
you. Your
Yes. They're
videos have helped
amazing.
me so much. Thank you. Seriously.
Yes.
Seriously. Gorgeous one says, when I look at potential job postings, if they say things like looking for a driven, hardworking self starter, I'm out next. Yeah, I'm exhausted just reading the job
Yes.
description.
Red flag. Red flag.
Oh, yes, red flag. Absolutely. Oh, I love when they say like multiple hats in job description. Like, no,
Mm-mm.
because that means you're going to have me working multiple jobs. And we know that
Yes.
you love to do that to Black women. So,
Yes. Yes.
yes.
That's funny.
That's just-
That's funny.
yeah, that's true. That's true. Setting intentions, being intentional. And something else you shared is like be honest with what you're feeling,
Yeah.
right? Because I feel like the
Yeah.
more that we try to deny what we're feeling,
Mm-hmm.
the more we try to like push it down, suppress it, it
Mm-hmm.
like comes back up eventually to the
Yes.
surface. So if you
Yes.
want to share anything about like just sitting with yourself, letting
Yes.
yourself feel in the
Yes.
power of that and healing.
Yeah. So I have a lot of feelings
Okay,
in general.
good.
And growing up, I was taught that I was too sensitive, right? I was told that I was
Yeah,
too sensitive.
me too.
Yeah. And it was so frustrating because I tried not to be sensitive. I tried everything like, oh, I'm just not going to care about this thing. But no, like God made me sensitive. I am sensitive. It just is what it is. And
Mm-hmm.
I think once I accepted that I was sensitive and I had feelings and I needed to feel these things deeply, I felt better. Like it was almost like I was at war with myself. And I think that sometimes we avoid the feelings of that aren't so pretty or happy, and we're like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, it's inconvenient, right? But in that sitting and allowing yourself to feel, that's like where all the sauce is. Like that is where all the things are. And it's almost like a form of self-love, I think, like a form of like self-intimacy, like being brave
Mm-hmm.
enough to be honest with yourself about how you feel and why you feel it. Like sometimes that's hard.
Yes,
Like you come to some conclusions when you sit by yourself. You know what I
true.
mean?
Very
um
true.
when you sit by yourself, like you can see things. If you're being honest, like you can see things
Mm-hmm.
that you have been seeing that you haven't given yourself permission to see and feel.
Mm-hmm.
And I think like what you're talking about, like pushing those feelings down, suppressing them
Mm-hmm.
is not going to make them go away. It's
Yes,
not. it just
true.
it just festers. The
Yep.
feelings just fester. It makes you
Mm-hmm.
more sick.
Yeah.
And I think that if we were all honest, if we all had safe spaces, I will say, if we all had safe spaces, because some people don't, if we
Mm-hmm.
all had safe spaces to really express how we feel, we would I feel like we would heal individually but also collectively, because there's a lot of collective pain and feelings that we have that we're just kind of
Yes.
like not talking about. We're just gonna ignore
True.
the elephant in the room.
Mm-hmm.
And just pass down that trauma to other people,
Mm.
or pass it
Yes.
on, or have it expressed in unhealthy ways. When I
Ooh.
think that sometimes, like, you have to be that safe place for yourself.
Mm.
Like, even if you don't
Mm-hmm.
have that safe space, I'm grateful, again, so grateful that I could journal, that I could express myself through song and all this other stuff that I did as a child, because I
Right.
had a lot of like big feelings that I didn't really have the language for, but I could use my little baby language or 7-year-old language to figure it out. You know what I'm saying?
Mm.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, I feel like that question you asked, I was gonna go somewhere else, but I went somewhere else. But here we are. But
That's
yes,
okay. We ended up where we needed to.
yes, yes, I agree. I agree.
Yes. 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 And that part that you said about collective healing, I think
Mm-hmm.
going through the trauma of the pandemic and it not being talked about, there were no spaces
Yes.
for sharing what we all
Yeah.
experienced. There were
Yeah.
no spaces for healing. That really like made me realize, wow, everything throughout our history. Like I was
Yes.
thinking about enslavement over 4 centuries. We have not had spaces to sit with what happened
No.
and talk about it and heal.
No. And every
Like,
time we
wow,
every time we do,
mhm,
it's like, oh, it was a
that
hundred
was in the
years ago.
past. Stop.
Okay. Like it just ended, and we no longer feel the effects of it.
No.
And
Yes.
I have a lot of thoughts about that anyway, because I'm
Please,
just
please share.
it's convenient to me.
Yeah.
Like it comes across as very convenient that, especially like now, we're in this age of like color doesn't matter. Like where like we're all given the same opportunities and all this other stuff, which really just erases everybody, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even like the
Yeah.
term like BIPOC. I don't like that term. That's just my own personal opinion. I don't like the term.
Yeah.
This is me. It's not Marissa. I'm not
Oh, no, no, no,
because
no, no. Because
okay.
I have a thought too, but no.
Okay. But it's lazy. It's
Yeah.
lazy. Like it's a lazy
Yeah.
term
It is.
because you don't have to get to know each individual's community's needs. And then even
Mm-hmm.
within that community, there are different needs that have not been met. So anyway, so I think it's really convenient that this country that thrives off of the back of enslaved people and native
Mm-hmm.
folks who were
Yes.
here, like indigenous
Yes.
folks,
Uh-huh.
now want to not talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, even though you have been thriving off of it since its inception, since 1619, right? I mean, and honestly, even before then, like
Before, yeah.
you have been thriving,
Mm-hmm.
thriving, living well. And now that we actually have a voice, we've been given a
Mm-hmm.
voice for 10 minutes. And y'all saying, okay, wrap it up. Y'all been talking for 400 plus years. You know what I'm saying? Like, what?
That's true.
We have a lot to say. If we have not had a voice for 400 plus years, we have a
Ooh.
lot to say. Just like,
Mm-hmm.
just imagine. And so I think it's insulting. It's
Mm-hmm.
insulting to me for people to feel inconvenienced by something they never had to live, they never had to experience.
Mm-hmm.
And also, we're not going to pretend like all the racial inequities and gender inequities like don't exist because
Mm-hmm.
they do. And
Right.
again, the gaslighting, like, oh well, you all had every opportunity, and which we have not,
Mm-hmm.
which
Not
we
at all.
have not, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, and even like this disdain for whenever I see like in Black spaces, I was even on a post the other day, and it was like called like Black motherhood something, and it was a Black mother being loved well by her husband or something, and so
Mm-hmm.
a Black woman commented, oh, every Black woman deserves this. This is not an inflammatory comment. This is not
Right.
like, it's not offensive. Every Black woman deserves this. And underneath the comment, there were a lot of white women like, every woman deserves this. Like,
Oh.
and I'm like, you're on a Black page.
Mm-hmm.
You're on a Black
Exactly.
page. The fact that you think that Black folks don't deserve their own space, their own things, it's because of slavery. Like, it's because of enslavement, because we were
Yes.
owned, everything. When people talk about our language, it's like, oh, now it's internet slang. It's AAVE/Ebonics. It's something that you criticized us about. And now it's trendy and cool because you can make money from it. Now it's profitable. You see what I'm saying? So for Black folks, like nothing, they don't see anything as inherently ours. Our language is sacred. Our tongue is sacred. Our slang is sacred. Like it's telling a story of a people who you denied access to read and to have access to these
Yes.
schools and places,
Yes.
and a language that you forced on us that we didn't want in the first place.
True.
So like, and we're also bringing, again, to, because I geek out about language too, but like we're also bringing our own like West African feel to art.
Yes.
Like when you
Yes.
think of like sucking your teeth, that's global. That's global Black. Like
Yeah.
every Black community has some sort of version of that, right? And we know what that means. The way that we say girl, like we communicate a whole sentence, like girl,
Right.
girl,
And depending
right?
on your reflection, right, it can mean multiple different things. Yep.
Yes. All of that is sacred.
Yes.
All of that is legitimate. And I think that because, again, because the state saw us as property, as something to make
Yes.
money off of,
Yes.
because the state saw us as like pets, something
Yes.
trendy. Even this idea of like the trendy thing, like you're seeing us as pets. You don't really take us seriously. You don't really see me as a person. You see me as like, even I've noticed this when I'm around some white women and some using
Yeah.
like the girlfriend. I don't even talk like that. Don't talk to me like that. Like
Exactly.
this,
Yeah.
it's not yours. Stop. It's not like, so this, the touching of the hair, the
Oh.
fetishization. Yeah, I can't speak.
Yeah.
But
No. I got
seeing
you.
Black people
Yeah.
as a fetish, I'm all tongue tied because I'm passionate.
Yes.
But like, it's
yes.
these are remnants of enslavement. You're not finna tell me, like playing football, the draft season, the pick, like
Yeah.
looking at people, the men who be talking online about,
Yeah.
oh, what's your dress size, all of that is roots of enslavement. So to
Yeah. True.
so to say that enslavement somehow has just like washed away and it's gone is
No.
a lie.
It
And
is.
now enslavement has turned into incarceration, right? Like, how can we
Yeah.
still, or at our jobs, how can I make you do the most work for me for the least amount of pay? That is enslavement.
Yes.
That is enslavement. Like, oh, I have to pay you technically. So let me give you this little $7.25. Because you're not worthy of a real wage, because the work that you're doing is beneath me. Because I own you. So like I have
Alicia.
hold on, sorry.
Yes.
I'm like sweating. But like I have a
Yes.
lot of like passionate thoughts about those things. Like
Mm-hmm.
y'all are liars. You're lying.
Mm-hmm.
You're lying. And after you have earned all this wealth, you know,
Mm-hmm.
there's an artist who recently gave all these artists back their masters. I don't want to say their name. But
Mm-hmm.
they gave them their artists all their masters back after they spent 30 years making money off of these artists. And now you want us to praise this artist. It's Puff
Mm-hmm.
Daddy, it's P Diddy, whatever his name is today. Okay, so he owned all of these like all the
Problematic.
publishing. Yes,
Yes. Mm-hmm.
that's enslavement. That's
Mm-hmm.
enslavement.
Mm-hmm.
You profited from their work and their art that you did not create. And now that
True.
you have made money 30 years off of these people, oh, I guess I'll give it back now after now I'm wealthy and I have my own brands, even though I used your money, your music to establish myself. Like
Mm-hmm.
the way that we model ourselves, even black folks, how we model ourselves after enslavement really breaks my heart.
Mm-hmm.
It makes like it makes me so upset. But it's because of this culture. That's how people survive. It's
Mm-hmm.
somebody said it's Puff Daddy, but yes, like that's how we survive, right? Like, what is his name today? I don't know, but that's they say, oh well, it's business. It's just business. No, it's
Mm.
enslavement. It's exploitation. It's
Mm-hmm.
theft. Like
Yes.
it's abuse.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
Thank
I
you.
step down from my my
Thank you for
soapbox.
sharing that.
I
Yeah.
appreciate that.
No, I had a reaction when you said BIPOC because in the toxic job I left, we had to say people of color all the time. And
No.
when I pushed back against that, it was not received well. So that's why I was like, ooh, brought me back there. Yes, completely
Oh
agree. Completely.
no. So it's like white folks and everybody else. Like
Yeah.
other.
And people of color, all lumped in the whole globe.
Mm, 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 mm.
Lumped in.
Yes.
That's another story for another day. But yes.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry you had to go through that because that's crazy. That's
Yes,
wild.
yes.
Mm-mm-mm.
But yeah, I think a lot of the times, like when they tell us that, oh, it was so long ago, why are y'all
Mm.
talking about it? It's a way for them to evade accountability for what
Yes.
they did.
Yes.
It's like, no, we're still living with the effects of this today.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to talk about it.
Yes.
And y'all are still the ones perpetuating these systems. And you're saying that it was so long ago, why are you still perpetuating the systems? As if it's still
Ex-
centuries ago. Doesn't,
mm-hmm.
yeah. Thoughts,
Somebody's
thoughts,
lying. The
thoughts.
math is not mathing. It's not making sense.
So true. Enough by MNC says, yeah, being told I'm too sensitive. Yeah, it did.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It did. It did. Because it tells you that something's wrong with you when it's not. And it's
Exactly.
just now me waking up to, wow, maybe I had like a spiritual gift this whole time. Because
Yes.
I've always been able
Yes.
to feel people's emotions
Yes.
viscerally.
Yep.
So it's reframing what people told us something was wrong with you. No, that's
Mm-hmm.
actually your gift. It's
Yeah.
actually your gift. You need to lean into that. Yep.
I love that.
Yes, being vulnerable, showing those emotions. Yes, yes, yes. Okay, I'll scroll down. Okay. Finding what's true to me says, yes, because the world would have you fall asleep. It's easier to control people if they are not thinking or feeling.
Mm-hmm.
I did the sleep things for years because I felt it was too painful to sit in. Ooh, that
Mm.
is true.
That's real.
A
That's
lot of
real.
us avoid the truth because it is too painful.
Mm-hmm.
Or we feel like it's too painful. We can't even address it or sit with it, or else we'll break.
Yes.
No, that's
Mm.
true.
Mm-hmm.
That's true.
Mm-hmm.
You have anything to say about that?
I do.
Okay.
I'm like, I don't want to
Please.
overtalk. But no, like
No.
the I agree, like that.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, we live in a culture that doesn't really honor it's toxically positive.
Mm-hmm. It
And
is.
it's right, like it's anything other than happy, like it's seen
Mm-hmm.
as inconvenient. And I think that we kind of internalize that. And so even the people that we hang out with, they don't want to hear what we're going through, like sometimes, right? Like they're just like, oh, I'm not interested. But I think that falling apart or breaking, first of all, admitting to yourself the truth of why you feel how you feel, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's rough. I
Mm-hmm.
had when I talk about my friends that I broke up with, the
Mm-hmm.
friend group, it really broke my heart when I came to the realization like I'm feeling this pain and I'm also mourning because I know I should break up with them, but that hurts
Mm-hmm.
and that
Mm-hmm.
sucks, and I
Yeah.
don't want to let them go. It's also admitting that they're people that I love who have hurt me, who I'm
Mm-hmm.
not, you know what I'm saying, like
Yeah.
who have let me down. That's hard to admit.
Mm-hmm.
like I've talked about issues with my father before, like how he's not in the picture. And
Yeah.
it's hard to sit with those feelings and the truth. Like I can keep pretending and moving on, but it's hard to sit still and be like, yo, my dad didn't want to be my dad.
Mm-hmm.
That's hard. And I think that sometimes we avoid those truths because it's easier to just like pretend. It's easier to just like not address those things. But usually when you mourn one thing, you're mourning more than one thing. And that takes
Yes,
time. That
it
takes energy.
does.
Sometimes it takes money, right? You need a break.
Mm-hmm.
You need a day off. And it's something
Mm-hmm.
that we don't always get afforded because of capitalism.
Mm-hmm.
So our even our pain we feel as not convenient because we don't have time. Like
Mm-hmm.
we don't have time or energy. Or now I feel this. Now what do I do now? Like what am I supposed to do with this truth? And so I think sometimes it is easier just to keep pushing, keep moving, because when you're moving, you're kind of running from yourself. But when you stop, it's like everything catches up with you. Like
Mm-hmm.
everything kind of hits you like the wind. Like you're running, you stop, you feel the
Mm-hmm.
wind of yourself. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's what happens. And
Yeah.
but if we're not careful, if we keep running, instead of like having like, oh, a gentle breeze, it's like, oh, it's like a hurricane. Like everything
Mm-hmm.
like everything that I've been running from comes up to me. So I think it's really important that we do set aside time, whether it's like once a month or something. I need a deep cry at least once a month, at least, you
Mm-hmm.
know for
Yeah.
feelings that I don't even have words for. But no, I need to cry. I need to get this out. I need to feel. So anyway, but yeah.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thank
You're welcome.
you.
I don't know if that
Yeah. No, it did. It
okay.
did. Everything you're sharing.
Oh,
Thank you.
thanks.
And then I think about like the systems that we're in don't allow us that time to sit,
No.
process our feelings, take a
Yeah.
break when we need
No.
to. Because, like you said, when you have time to sit, you start to reflect on stuff. And they don't
Yes.
want us to do that. They want us to keep, at this pace that's inhuman so that we don't have time to think, like, hold on, this isn't right that I have to live
Yes.
like this.
Yes.
You know?
Yes. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you for sharing.
Of course.
Yes, tells us we literally went from chattel slavery to freedom with the emancipation with no therapy. We are miracles and we have
Yes.
much healing to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for sharing that. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
Yeah.
Yes. Yep. We have not had the opportunity
Mm-hmm.
for healing spaces to talk about what happened for centuries.
Yes. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Wow.
I well, yeah.
Yeah.
If I
Please,
can,
please share. Yeah.
even though I know that we didn't have access to therapy, I do, even a lot of people, okay, a lot of things I know that my elders didn't talk about. I wish they did, like the pain they went through. But I
Yeah.
do feel like they were trying to find their therapy in their own ways, right? Whether that be in a
True.
bottle or
That's true.
cigarettes or gambling, right? Like
That's
finding these
true.
spaces or just hanging out with their friends on a porch. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like these finding spaces of healing, they might not have been like intentionally trying to find those spaces, but I do think
Mm-hmm.
by them coming together in community, there still is healing that happens. There's some sort of like reprieve a little bit. Like I don't have to, pretend for you because you're my community, you're my family, you're my friends. I don't have
Mm-hmm.
to pretend for you like I do for the world out there. You know what I'm saying? They
Right.
just found their therapy in their own way. And also, like,
Mm-hmm.
therapy back then was also problematic.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
so I'm,
Yeah.
in some ways, I'm glad. Like, I mean, let's be, even textbook wise, like, it was seen as some sort of mental illness to want to run away from enslavement, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, like,
Oh my gosh.
you know what I'm
Yes.
saying?
It's
So,
true.
there's a
Yeah.
lot of things, but I do think that black people, black joy usually are found. Black joy is usually found like on the margins and like on the
Mm-hmm.
fringes, like and in the spaces that we can find. And I think that that black joy, those black joyous spaces, those spaces are healing, even if it's
Yes.
not like therapy. But I do agree that there's a lot of pain that was not expressed
Mm-hmm.
specifically because it was seen as weak or like we don't have time to talk about that, right? Like we trying to pay bills, we trying to take care of y'all, keep y'all alive, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I do think it would have done a great deal of good to be able to take a breath again, like
Mm-hmm.
Tal was saying. You leave enslavement. What are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah, you're free. What does that mean? What does freedom even
Ooh.
mean? What are my
Wow.
options? I'm literally starting from nothing.
Mm.
Nothing. Like, yes, we're
Yeah.
miracles. Period. You know?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
anyway, yes.
And I'm just thinking about like after the end of the institution of enslavement, you have the Freedmen's Bank that lied to people.
Mm.
So the hope that you do have in coming
Mm-hmm.
out of being enslaved with
Yeah.
these institutions, you're
Yeah.
lied to again and it re-traumatizes you
Mm-hmm.
to not be able to trust anyone. Like this
Yes.
is real. This is
Ooh.
real. Yeah.
almost like
Trauma.
almost like joy is, it's dangerous to have joy or hope, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
it's dangerous to hope. It's painful to hope because a lot of the hope that was sold to black folks, a lot of progress that we made, it was burned down, it was hung from
Mm-hmm.
trees,
Yeah.
it was dragged behind cars, it was stolen
Yeah.
back, right? It was given and taken back. Like I think like that's a huge part, I think, sometimes of things that we've inherited, right?
Mm-hmm.
This I don't want to believe anything else is possible because it's easier to believe that nothing else is possible because we've been let down for so long. And
Mm-hmm.
even like I think of the trauma of our ancestors, right? The fear that we feel of dreaming something new or starting something different. A lot of us didn't move out like of what our parents thought to say and do because of safety. Like a lot of
Yeah.
them didn't
That's
do
true.
because there was no other option. Where are you going? Like where are you
That's
going to be
true.
safe? My mom's family, they all lived in the same neighborhood. Everything you need is there. Where are you
Mm-hmm.
going? Like
Yeah.
that is your community. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that in like reality, it was painful to dream. It was dangerous to be anything different than what these people thought that you were. Because if you stood
Mm-hmm.
out too much, you might
Ooh.
come against violence. Like you might be
Yes.
harmed. And so that same
Yeah.
fear we're carrying with us, right? Like we carry that trauma with us. Like, oh, I can't move from the herd. I can't be different because I'm going to be harmed. That makes sense because our
Mm-hmm.
people felt that thing. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I
Yep.
don't know, just you saying that just like brought that thought to me. But yeah, so I appreciate
Mm-hmm.
that. Yeah.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
And like the fear of showing what we're doing, telling other
Yeah.
people what we're doing.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. That's
That
why we
that is
we holding
interesting.
everything close. That makes sense. It makes
Yeah.
sense.
The
Yeah.
connections. Oof.
Mm-hmm.
That is
Mm-hmm.
so real. That is so real. Okay, y'all. Okay. Let me
Sorry.
get to the last question. No, no, please don't. Girl, you are sharing so many
Okay.
gems tonight.
I
Thank you.
appreciate that. You're welcome. Thanks for having me. I'm having a great time, by the way. But
Absolutely.
yes.
But yeah, your dreams,
Yeah.
going back to dreaming. Like you said,
Yeah.
sometimes we feel like it's not possible for us to dream anymore. But
Mm-hmm.
I would love to know about your dreams for Black Girl Creative going forward and
Mm-hmm.
also just your future as a multi
Yeah.
passionate artist. What things are you going to
Thank
get
you for
into?
asking. Thank you
Mm-hmm.
for asking. For Black Girl Creative specifically, I have a lot of dreams for Black Girl Creative. The first thing I want to do is help Black women rediscover their creativity. So that's what I plan on doing in the garden. Having meetups where we talk about things, creative things, but also just like life things because life and creativity go hand in hand. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Long-term goals, I see like I want to have concerts for Black women artists.
Yay.
I do.
Yes.
I really like pop-up concerts, virtual concerts,
Yes.
because Black women are creating things with stories to tell, whether that
Mm-hmm.
be with music or whether that be with writing or photography, whatever it is. Like I want to be able to create something, a platform or something where Black
Mm-hmm.
women are celebrated and seen for their creative ventures and their projects and all the things and getting the support that they really need. Because what I find is like Black women support Black women. if,
Mm-hmm.
if nobody
That's
else
true.
gonna come and show up, it's gonna be Black women. If
Yes.
like
That's
Black women
true.
are looking for each other, and we have so many gifts to offer, but we just need to be found. And sometimes we're trying to be found in these spaces that are very white, that are very male centered, right? And we're just like, well, how do we, I'm
Mm-hmm.
trying, I'm showing up, how about we
Right.
like come together in community and actually like collaborate with each other and help each other and like do the
Mm-hmm.
things. Like I want to collaborate more with other artists, whether that's with like album cover art. I'm not a visual artist. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yes, you
so,
are.
well,
Your
yes, yes,
album
yes.
covers are amazing. Oh my gosh.
Well, thank you. Thank you for correcting
Yeah.
me. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
But I would love to still like collaborate with people with my music and like to do something. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Mm-hmm.
so ideally, like having concerts, um, performances, like art shows, I don't know, like
Mm-hmm.
retreats in the
Yeah.
future for Black Girl Creative.
Yeah.
I have a lot of dreams, and I'm giving myself the opportunities to dream big and to just do the thing and allow it to take shape as it takes
Mm.
shape. Because I think what happened to me before was I thought it had to look a certain way. I had thought it had to be a certain way, and I'm just kind of like, I had the intention, right? And however it
Oh,
materializes or
yeah.
happens, that's how it's going to
Mm-hmm.
happen. So I had the intention of having a concert. How it happens, we don't know. I'm open to it all. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm open
Yeah.
to whatever that's going to be. But I get excited when I sit there and I think about like the dreams that I have for Black Girl Creative. So
Me
yes.
too.
So just yeah,
Yeah.
more love, more creativity, more Black women.
Yay!
Yes, thank you. For
I'm
myself,
excited.
yes,
Mm-hmm.
I'm excited. I'm really excited. I also want to. I have a lot of things. Anyway,
Mm-hmm.
but
Go
but
ahead. Go ahead.
for
Mm-hmm.
myself, like I've said recently, as in like a few years ago, like I want to live multiple lives. You know what I mean? And
Mm-hmm.
I think sometimes like when we're talking about like niching and like especially like with capitalism and like oh you have to have a thing. What is your thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
I am I am multifaceted and we all are. We all have multiple interests. But I think that
Mm-hmm.
sometimes because of like the business industry, we feel like we can only do one thing, right? Like we can
Mm.
only do.
Yes.
It's
Niche
like
down.
no, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
plan on doing a lot of stuff. I plan on opening a homestead at some point, and like, I want to. I really okay. What I really want to do is buy land
Mm-hmm.
where people can purchase tiny houses for cheap, like, and we all pitch in
Yes.
together and have a community together. That's my
I
vision and
love
dream. I
that.
have no idea how this is gonna happen,
I
but that's what
love
I want to
that.
do. I want to
Mm-hmm.
live in a van and travel across country.
Mm.
I want to learn. I want to learn herbalism. I want to learn
Mm.
these kinds of things.
Mm-hmm.
I want to become an interpreter at some point. Not right now, but at some
Mm-hmm.
point. I still have a lot of healing to do. I think with the academic space. So
Me,
as
ooh,
I heal, yeah,
me too.
yes. So I want to heal first and then go in. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, I have a lot of things that I want to do that even right now, like it's like, oh girl, why dream that thing because you don't have access to it? At some point I will. I'm given the dreams for
Yeah.
a reason. The connections are gonna be there and it starts by sharing it.
Uh-huh.
It starts by sharing it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what else? I have a lot of things I want to do. I want to at some point be a mom. I want to have
Yeah.
babies. I want to have
Yay.
little babies running around. You know,
That's beautiful.
yes, and yeah, I think I just want to be content. Like I want to be full of joy. I want to be content. I want to be honest and authentic, and I don't want to have to lie to live. If that makes sense, whatever way
Mm-hmm.
that, which also means sometimes putting down dreams for a second. For
Mm.
for example, like I have a podcast called Black Girl Creative, and I put
Mm-hmm.
that down for like a year, and I thought that dream was dead. I thought it was over. But
Yeah.
really, it's like, no, I just needed to honor my season. It took me a year to get re inspired to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, I think sometimes we feel like we're holding on to dreams, like, no, it has to be this thing. Sometimes we put down one thing to focus on another thing. And it doesn't mean it's dead, right? It's just like winter, right? It's just a
Yeah.
winter season. It's there. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm giving myself room to do all the things that I want to do, including having conversations with some of the people here, having conversations with you.
Yeah.
Like, this is a dream.
Mm-hmm.
This is like, seriously, this is a dream come true for
Mm-hmm.
me. So I appreciate you
Mm-hmm.
inviting me here. I really do. I
Oh,
really do.
absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. You
But
shared
yes.
so much. I have to go back and
Oh,
watch this because it's been so
okay.
inspirational. Yes.
Thank you. I
Do
hope
you
it's
have
helpful.
it is very helpful. Thank you.
Thanks.
And I did want to ask you for people who feel like they can't even dream anymore, because we know like
Mm-hmm.
oppression kind of robs us of our ability to dream, imagine
Yeah.
new things.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any like tips or advice for how you can even restart the process of dreaming and imagining new possibilities?
So I would definitely reiterate play, right?
Hmm.
I think sometimes we put a lot of pressure on dreaming, like, oh, I need to dream a whole new dream and create a new life for myself. Start by looking at the clouds. What do the clouds look like to you? Like, seriously, like,
Hmm.
allow your space. Like, I think sometimes we have to practice opening our minds up for imagination, like,
Right.
to open up that thing that is so tightly closed together. Like, okay, let's look at the clouds. Let's look at the leaf. What about this? What does this remind me of?
Hmm.
Like things like that. I would also say to to be honest with yourself because there are dreams there. Like
Yeah.
what are things that you feel like you want to do but you feel like you're too small to do? You know?
Mm.
Like be
Hmm.
honest with yourself. You can also start with like what are things you hate? What would you change about that? Like for
Mm.
myself, like I hate poverty. I don't think it should exist.
Yeah.
Like what would I change about it? And then how can I do that with my little, my little coin and my little influence now? Like what does that, look like? Um because inspiration, your dreams are all around and they do nudge to you. I would also say, who do you envy and why?
Mm.
Who are you
Hmm.
envious of? Because
Yeah.
as we talked about jealousy and envy,
Yep.
sometimes we envy people because we see them doing what we want to do.
Hmm.
That's a clue.
Yep.
It's a clue. It doesn't have to
It
be,
is.
you don't have to cuss them out or tear them down. Take it as like, oh wow, I feel this envy. Like what is that
Hmm.
about? I want to do what they want to do. So how can I do that in my own way? Right? How
Right.
can I get started on that thing? Or if you really don't know where to start, try anything. Seriously. Like
Hmm.
do anything, dream anything. Start with like something that feels, if you feel like it's too big, start with something small. Like, what do you want to eat today? What would be an amazing
Mm.
meal?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what would be a great meal to eat at a restaurant? You know, like start there. It don't have to be like, oh, this is my big dream for my life. Like, start small, small. I mean, but still, what you eat is still big, right?
It
Like, it's still
is.
big.
Yeah.
And you're still collaborating with people when you eat, right? Because most of us are not growing our own food, but even if you
True.
are, you're still collaborating with the earth. So like all of those creative
Mm-hmm.
components are still there. We just have to like open our eyes and see it in a different way. So
Mm-hmm.
the dreams are there. They're there. They're speaking to you. They're not silent. We just got to be quiet enough and honest enough and brave enough to listen and to admit to ourselves that this is what we want to do. So that's what I would say.
Mm. Powerful. Powerful. Thank you.
Of course. Thank you.
But yes, yes. As we're wrapping up, where can people, I'm sure everyone
Yeah.
knows,
You so
but
good.
where can people continue to follow your journey online?
Yes.
Continue
Oh,
to support what you're doing, if you want to share
thank
that.
you.
Hmm.
Yes, thank you. You can at Alicia Renece basically everywhere. Instagram. I mean, you can find me on Instagram. Sometimes I post stuff about what I create. Sometimes it's just like puppies and stuff in my stories and parrots and all the cute stuff. But I'm there. You can find me on YouTube at Alicia Renece the artist.
Hmm.
I have a website, aliciarenece.com. Yeah. And you can email me, hello
Hmm.
at aliciarenece.com.
Hmm.
And I think those are my main ways of connection. I will say,
Yeah.
if you want to contact me, please do email because my DMs and stuff like that, I don't even go in there that often.
Mm.
And I
Hmm.
feel bad. I have to say that I feel bad because people are like, hey, I reached out to you. I'm like, oh my god, I'm so sorry, but I get overwhelmed. I do, I do. Like,
Yeah.
I have a lot of anxiety around like social media and all that
Me
stuff and getting
too.
back to people on time. Yeah, it's a lot.
Hmm.
So I
Yep.
prefer like the slow mode of communication, like email or text or something like that.
Gotcha.
So yeah, I appreciate
Gotcha.
that. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, this has been wonderful. I'm seeing comments like everyone wants to live in that community. Yes,
Yes.
I
Yes.
agree. I've,
Yes.
it's like what we're doing now. Just no. Can we
It's
just all have
awful.
tiny houses and just live in a prairie, please?
Hello. Hello. Ah, a
That
dream.
sounds so great. But yes, this has been amazing,
Thank you.
and a dream for me as well. So thank you,
You're
for being
welcome.
on here. Thank
A
y'all so much
pleasure.
for commenting. And yes, I linked, the waitlist to the Garden season
Yeah.
2 is coming up at the end of this month, I think. And your EP being as
Yes.
well.
Thank you.
So you can find all those in the description. But yeah, thank y'all so much for being here.
Yes.
Until next time, y'all. Have a good night.
Thank
Bye.
you. And thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Bye.